Okay, we're going to get going here. This is Ken Burg. We're going to do rules 15, 16, and 17 today. First of all, for everybody on the Zoom call, if you have a question you want to get in, Alvin's number is 314-409-0444. That's 314-409-0444. Okay, three rules today, 15, 16, and 17. Um, Need to put these in context of where we've been and why these are here. How do we play the game of golf? Starting in the teeing area, we put a ball in play with a stroke. We continue with a series of strokes till we hole out on the putting green. Then we go to the next hole and start it again. In doing that, we play the course as we find it. We play the ball as it lies. And all those strokes we make, Rule 10. Remember all the things it told us we couldn't do? There's the context for that. There's 5 areas of the course. Teeing area, last week Mike covered putting greens, bunkers. The 4th specific area is Rule 17 penalty area. Is going to cover that today. Now, as for play the course as you find it, the ball as it lies, remember Rule 8, the cats? There it is. That's your roadmap for that. And there's 2 things I want to read out of that, because it directly affects 2 of the rules today. Player's action and the stroke. What are those things that we care about? Lie, stance, swing, line of play, relief area. It does not apply to removal of loose obstructions. Aha, Rule 15. Actions not allowed. Move, bender, bound. We're going to see those in Rule 16. Okay? The whole thing about that sequence of strokes is, where do we play the ball from? It's where the ball comes to rest after the previous stroke. Okay? Golf's not a game of perfect. We're not perfect, but we're going to find things on the course that may prevent us or make it difficult for us to play from where the ball came to rest. There's sometimes you just plain can't. You won't have a choice. If it comes to rest off the course, you don't have a choice. Rule 18 tells you how to get it back, or you can continue the sequence of strokes. Okay? That's the purpose of Rule 18. Ball lost or out of bounds. It's the only reason it's there. It's to get you back on the course where you can keep going. But the other things that we find, according to the rules, they aren't part of the challenge of the game. We're going to find those in Rule 16. Okay? Rule 15, what's the difference between 15 and 16? Well, they're both free relief if you choose. Mandatory, you take them. You can always try to play the ball as it lies under those 2 rules. Just because there's a cart path there doesn't mean you have to take relief. Just because you got impediments around doesn't mean you have to move them. That's your choice. Rule 17 tells you what to do for a ball in a penalty area. You can play it if you want. If you want or can't, it tells you where to get the ball back to keep going. I point out the ball. Everything in this is all about the ball. Where's the ball? Sometimes the feet matter, but mostly it's the ball. So here's the short language version of Rule 15 for loose impediments and movable obstructions. The ball, other stuff. There's the short language version. Now we'll get to the details of it. We got 3 parts: loose impediments, movable obstructions, and this last one, something else can get in your way, a ball or a ball marker. Here's movable obstructions or other stuff that could be in our way around the lie of the ball or stance or swing. Loose impediments, movable obstructions, including when the ball isn't found, which will get us into that known or virtually certain category. Golf balls of other players. We normally don't think of that, except on the putting green maybe, but it does apply elsewhere on the course. And the ball markers of other players, which almost always we're thinking on a putting green. What's the difference between a loose impediment and movable obstruction? Simple. Loose impediments are natural. Obstructions are artificial. Keyword on the impediments is loose. Okay, movable and immovable obstructions, forget immovable, that's Rule 16. I took all those slides out of here for the most part. They're all in 16 now. Balls and ball markers, helping and interfering. This can cause confusion. When we get there, I think we can clear it up. All righty. Notice the word free relief. Doesn't cost you anything. Probably. From either one of those two things, doesn't cost you anything because you're going to move the thing. But we already know, if you've been here before, loose impediments, if the ball moves when you move the thing, you may be subject to penalty. But in either case, the ball's going back to where it was at rest. The ball goes back. Okay? Not part of the challenge. That's important. And here's the warning. Be careful, except on the putting green. If the ball moves when you move the loose impediment and you're judged to be the cause, direct cause, it's going to cost you a penalty stroke and you got to put it back. Okay, question. This will be for later. In fact, it'll be after the last thing we cover in this. A reasonably believes B's ball at rest might interfere with A's play. Which of the following is not correct? A may require B to mark and lift B's ball, which must not be cleaned except when lifted from the putting green. In stroke play only, if B is required to mark and lift his or her ball, they may play first. Interference exists when B's ball at rest might interfere with A's area of intended swing, but not when B's ball is close enough to distract A in making a stroke. Okay, loose impediments, we already said what they were, natural objects. Okay? A lot of examples, see them all over the damn course when the maintenance staff has had a bad day. Stone, loose grass, leaves, branches, sticks. Every time you see 3 dots, there's more. Dead animals and animal waste. Now, normally you don't think of dead animals as a loose impediment, but they are. They're natural. They're not attached or growing. Animal waste. That is separate from what we're going to see on the next slide. Essentially, that's poop. Yeah. Okay. Worms, insects, and other similar animals that can be removed easily. 3 more dots. Basically bugs. This is an interesting part of that. Mounds and the webs they build. Okay. These are things that look like, or could be confused with, animal waste, but they're not. Stuff that they've dug out of the ground and left there. Okay. It's loose impediments, which means you don't get relief from it, but you can sweep it out of the way. Clumps of compacted soil, aeration plugs, but it doesn't have to be just an aeration plug. It could be any chunk of compact. But that's normally what we think of. What does loose mean? It's not attached or growing. It's solid. It's not solidly embedded in the ground. And it's not sticking to the ball. That's loose. If it's any of these, it ain't loose. Like mud on your ball. Sorry. Attached or growing. This is an interesting one. Let's say you've got a vine that's rooted in the ground 4 feet over here, but the vine has grown to where it's laying right next to your ball. Okay. Can you move it? Well, it's natural, but guess what? It's attached or growing, so you can't pick it up and move it out of the way. And you say, well, that doesn't make sense. Well, think of it this way. You got a branch on a tree. It's coming down where it's going to stick you right in the back when you set up to your swing. We know from Rule 8, you can't break it or bend it out of the way. You can take around it. You can take your stance, but you can't get it out of the way. You can't physically move it out of the way. These are things that look like loose impediments, but they aren't. Sand and loose soil are not loose impediments. Okay. Remember though, on Rule 13, if they're on the green, you can remove them. We just saw the picture of these guys. Okay. Those little things that the insects leave behind, they're not sand or loose soil, they're casts. So those things you can get rid of. We have a lot of things here that look like something else, but they aren't. Dew, frost, and water are not loose impediments. Remember Rule 6 in the teeing area? You want to mop them up, get them out of the way? Have at it. But that's the only place you can do it. Snow and natural ice. This is an interesting one. This is like the definition of animals in Rule 16. Depending which page you're on, it has a different meaning. Okay, they're either loose impediments because they are natural, and if they're on the ground, temporary water at the player's option. Temporary water shows up in Rule 16. That's a temporary accumulation of water on the ground, not in the bush, not in the tree, on the ground. So snow in the tree, ice in the tree, If it's on the ground, you got a choice. Spider webs, this is a good one too. Have you ever seen a spider web that wasn't attached to anything? No. So here, if there's one in the tree and it's, oh, geez, take it out. If it's on the grass next to your ball, I've seen that in the morning. We can see the spider webs there. You can move it. And a live insect is never attached by definition. Live insects are attached to your ball. You guys try to get them off. So that's what they all are. And the biggest one or the most confusing one is the stuff that worms and insects leave behind on the ground that looks like sand or loose soil, but isn't. Okay, how do we get rid of it? And what happens if the ball moves? Without penalty, you can move it anywhere on or off the course in any way. A lot of dots there. Your hand, your foot, equipment, club, help from others, you can break off part of it. If there's a branch there and you only got one little corner of it that's really bothering you, you don't want to move the whole thing because it's muddy or wet. Break off the part you care about. Other thing is, it says if that loose impediment is either on or off the course. Now you say, why does it matter if it's off the course? Well, you can stand off the course to play your ball that's on the course. So it'd be kind of nice if you didn't have to deal with these things while you're taking your stance off the course. Two exceptions, always exceptions. First one, we got a lot of dots here, so it's best just to keep going. Putting green is kind of exceptional because you can do a lot of things with your ball on the putting green, lift, mark it, get stuff out of the way whenever you want. It's on the rest of the course where you can't. So keep that picture on the right on your mind. Here's the bottom line. You can't deliberately remove a loose impediment that if it was moved while the ball was still in place would have caused the ball to move. So here you can't try the Houdini trick and pull the leaf out and hope the ball didn't move. Okay? No. Didn't work that often for him either. Also, you can't, for instance here, let's say you couldn't identify your ball, and I can't because I can't see a marker. So you want to identify your ball? You can't mark it, lift your ball, move the leaf out of the way, and then put the ball back down. Okay? Now there's one way around it. That would be if the leaf stuck to the ball when you picked it up and then fell off.
How does that work?
Rarely. Because the first thing I'd say is you got lucky. But anyway, if it does, one penalty stroke. You do this, one penalty stroke, but here it says you don't need to replace it. Okay? So you got the benefit of the leaf getting out of the way because your action was responsible for it, but you don't get out free. This applies whether play is stopped or not. You can't use a stoppage in play to clean stuff out of the way under this rule, if it would be a problem otherwise. Okay? And here's all that says. This is a clarification. Okay? Basically, if the ball would have moved, if you tried it originally, you can't do it otherwise. That's how you get into trouble. All right? If you're going to drop or put a ball back into play, here's the out. Remember we played the ball from where it last came to rest? If you're dropping a ball, it had no last place. It didn't own anything. We're allowed to remove loose impediments and movable obstructions anywhere on the course. You just happen to remove them from the relief area. Okay? It's only when you're placing a ball back where it was, you got to be careful about loose impediments. If there's leaves all over the place, you pick it up to identify it. You got to put it back down on the leaves. You don't get to blow them away and then put the ball down. Okay? But that's the thing. If you didn't have a spot on the ground, you're free to move anything that would have been there. Okay. This is another gotcha. It doesn't apply to a loose impediment that wasn't there before you lifted or moved the ball. For instance, you pick a ball up to identify it and the leaves blow across and cover it up, your spot. We know we're allowed to the lie we had when your ball came to rest. So what do you get to do? Lie altered. You get to recreate the lie. And also, you get some reactions if you're doing anything under the rules, okay, where you had to handle the ball. If something gets moved, you're okay, like measuring, that kind of stuff. You're okay. This one from Rule 11, it's going to show up a couple of times here. There's a corollary in 8, but 11 is more appropriate here because of what we're dealing with. You can't take actions to affect a ball in motion might. The one they're showing here is the ball was played up to the top of the hill. It's coming back down, and the player is cleaning the area up, moving loose impediments, replacing stuff like that. Whether the ball goes in that area or not. 11.3 is an intent rule, whereas 11.2, taking actions to deliberately deflect the ball, you don't. This one is, you tried to clean up the area, you're going to get the penalty under 11. The question is, would that be a one stroke penalty or two? Here's the way to figure 1 versus 2. The penalty is to replicate the advantage you gained, okay? 1 stroke penalties are typically procedural things. You moved it and you shouldn't put it back, okay? The general penalty is, nah, you got an advantage. You played from a wrong place, not conforming. The serious penalty is the general penalty, which is you can't undo what you did and you got an advantage. Whether it ended up helping you or not is not the point. You intended it to. Okay? That's how it's going to be 2 versus 1. Okay? All right. So the ball moved. What do we do? Well, remember, we're playing from where the ball came to rest after our last stroke. Well, that's where it's got to go back to. Original spot, and if we don't know it, ... where it's estimated to be. But here we are. To me, this is just suicide to try this because I've never seen it work. Even when you're not even keeping score, I've never seen it work. Okay, he moved the loose impediments. The ball moved directly as a result of it. It's going to be the penalty. You put it back. Okay? And there it is, original spot, estimated. And Rule 14 told us how to do that. It's with your hand, setting it on the ground and releasing it. Has to be with your hand. You can't use your foot or a club. And there's your penalty, 1 stroke. Okay. Yeah, and that's anywhere except the putting green or the teeing area. Special places. On the teeing area, until you make a stroke, the ball's not in play. And if you do make a stroke and it's in the teeing area, you can be teeing it green, you're allowed to mark and lift it anytime you want. And if that happens to get, so you can get a loose impediment out of the way, no big deal. Okay. There's a bunch of other times too, searching for a ball, identifying it. And then there's a bunch of them here when you're trying to implement a rule. If things happen and the ball moves, you're okay. You don't need to remember them because they hardly ever happen. But if you're called over for it, there's where you find it. So if you don't get the ball back where it was, what'd you do? Played from a wrong place. General penalty. Second part, movable obstructions. Okay. What are they? And what do we do with them? Well, I already told you. We're going to move them. Not going to touch the, well, we're not going to move the ball intentionally or unintentionally. We're going to move the thing. The best part about this one is no matter how clumsy you are, there's no penalty. So what are they? Well, they're artificial. Basic, manufactured, man-made something. There's a good example of something that looks like it isn't, but it is. So we got a path. We got manufactured ice cubes. Got a rake and a cover and a bunker. We got a water fountain with a concrete pad. Looks like there's a fence behind it in the brush. All of those are artificial. They're obstructions. Here's some things that look like they should be but aren't. Kind of like the things that worms leave behind that look like sand or loose soil but aren't. Here's things that look like they're obstructions but aren't because of what they're used for. Integral objects and boundary objects. Got a lot of examples. Some of these will be movable, some won't. Just let you see them. Roads, surfaces, and their borders, which is curbs. Buildings and rain shelters. No, those aren't moving. Sprinkler heads, drains, irrigation control boxes. Those don't move. Stakes, walls, railings, fences. Except when boundary objects or integral objects. Golf carts, mowers, cars and vehicles. Those can be movable or immovable. You know how they're immovable? Somebody locked them and walked away. Waste containers, signposts, benches. I've seen both. These are two we don't normally think of. Equipment, flag sticks, and rakes. Rakes we do, but there's a special case. Rake is, until you pick it up, rake's an obstruction. Once you pick it up, it's your equipment. Mike talked about flag sticks last week in Rule 13. When they're an obstruction, when they're not, when they have special conditions, when they don't. Okay, it's either movable or immovable. Well, we only care about movable here, but couldn't get them all out. If part of an immovable obstruction can be moved without damaging the course or the object, it's movable. Now here's a gate. Let's assume it's not a boundary object. Okay. The fence itself is an obstruction. It's fixed, it's not moving. But the gate in the middle of it is a movable obstruction. Assuming it's not locked or chained, player's free to move it to any position he wants to let him make a stance or a swing. As long as it's not chained or locked. If it is, you're not allowed to cut the chain or pick the lock. Things we paint on the ground, they're not anything. TIOs, John Thorman has covered those in Slagro many times. How you take relief, whether it's from the physical interference or whether it's line of sight. But that's a special type of obstruction. Typically, we have it on our rule sheet for the tournaments because we do have fans. That's our most typical TIO. Okay, finally, movable obstructions. It's an obstruction that can be moved with reasonable effort without damaging the obstruction or the course. Okay. Here we got a towel, we got a cart, and I hope that's not a rules official. And we got a rake with a ball next to it. Okay. So here we go again. Looks familiar, doesn't it? You can't get all of these out of them. I'm sorry. I wish I could, but I couldn't. Same thing though. Feel free to move it. This is the one that looks like, feels like, thinks like, but ain't. I've got an artificial wall constructed of stones, big stones. Individually, each stone is movable. Okay. That doesn't mean we can take the wall apart to create an area to swing or stand. It's intended to be in one piece. So as long as it's in that constructed location, orientation, you can't take it apart. Well, if one of the stones is laying 5 feet away from it, what's it? Well, now it's a movable obstruction because it was part of an obstruction. Now it got moved over here. Now you can move it, but you can't take it apart on your own. Here's the other one, split rail fence. A lot of pieces, looks like you could take them apart if you needed to, but it's intended to stay in a unit. So typically what the rules would say on our rule sheet was the split rail fence on the right side of hole 4 is an immovable obstruction, which means don't take it apart. Now, if Kurt really wanted to be mad at you, he'd call it an integral object, because then not only can you not relief from it. So if he's having a bad day, look out. Okay, so now we've seen what they are. Now here's what we do with them. How do we take relief? And what if we've got known or virtual certainty? Remember, like a building or a shelter or a car or something? What if we know the ball is in there and we can't get it or can't find it in there, but we're known or virtually certain? Okay. Free relief, but it's voluntary. It's not mandatory. Okay. We see a bunch of them here. A stake. There's that rake in the bunker. Looks like he's handling a ball washer. Then we got some trash containers. All of them are movable obstructions. Nothing from immovable, sorry. Go rule 16, but not under this rule. Or these other guys that look like those immovable obstructions. Okay. We'll talk about them in rule 16. Okay, so without penalty, you can move them. And again, this applies even if that movable obstruction is not on the course. You're playing a hole, your ball is inbounds, but on the other side of the out of bounds line is somebody's tricycle in their backyard. Okay? Assuming the guy doesn't have a sign that says, I'll shoot you if you come in here. You can move the tricycle out of the way to play your shot. Okay?
Because of the intended swing stance,
If it's in your way.
even if it's in your line or a distraction.
If it's not a distraction, but a movable obstruction can be moved for any reason. Okay? Any reason you can move a movable obstruction. Same with a loose impediment. You can move for any reason you want. But here, there's no risk to it if you do. And again, any way.
Golfer has to have a reasonable belief that it's in the way.
No. The question is, do you have to have a reason to move a movable obstruction? The answer is no. It's movable. Don't move it. We're not going to come back and later say, why'd you move it? Why'd you pick up the rake and move it? I don't know.
My bike.
I'll put it back for you. No, it's off the course. Because remember, we can move that movable obstruction whether it's on the course or off. Okay? If it's off the course, it's not in the general area.
Question, please.
Yeah, you can, like I say, no, your ball is on the course. Okay? Question was, does it matter where the bike is? And the answer is not really. It can be on or off the course. What matters is your ball on the course? and where do you have to stand or swing to play it. Okay. Two exceptions. One of them you should already know. Tee markers on the hole you're playing from the teeing area you're playing. Okay? They're not movable obstructions while you're playing from the teeing area on that hole. And all the other teeing grounds on that hole that may have markers on them, those are all movable obstructions as far as you're concerned. But the teeing area you're playing from, if I'm playing from the blue tees, the blue tee markers are not movable obstructions when I'm playing from that area. The white tees, the red tees, the yellow tees, the green tees, those are all movable, but not the ones I'm using. Okay? And here's that rule 11.3 again. Setting a movable obstruction from one place to another to affect where the ball may come to rest, where a ball in motion may come to rest. Same thing, I couldn't rearrange loose impediments to maybe help or hurt where a ball might finish. I can't do it with the movable obstructions either. So we got consistency for both parts of this rule. Can't mess with them for a ball in motion. Before it's in motion, it didn't say anything. That's going to be rule 8.3. Okay, here's the part about oops. So we've decided we want to move this rake. We moved it, the ball moves, we put it back. Good practice would say mark the location of your ball before you move the obstruction so you know exactly where it is. Now the rules say original spot or estimated. Okay. All right. This is kind of, I almost want to say in, on, or under for this part. Okay. Anywhere on the course except the putting green, Why? Because on the putting green, we can do a lot with the ball to get away from stuff and get it out of the way, to move stuff out of the way and put the ball back. So this is where we're not supposed to be even touching the ball for this case. But your ball could come to rest on an obstruction, a movable obstruction. We've got a towel. What do? You lift the ball, move the towel out of the way, put the ball back in a relief area. Since it wasn't on the ground, okay, it wasn't touching the ground, so it didn't have a spot. So you're going to have to generate a relief area. Where's the reference point where the ball was estimated to be? You got your one club length around it, and off you go. Okay? So there you are. There's one other thing. The only part of the relief area, so the part that's in the same part of the course as your reference point was. So in other words, if this happened in the general area where your ball was sitting on top of it, that part of the relief area you can use has to be in the general. If it's a part of it's in a bunker, parts in the general area, you have to get your ball into the general area part. Okay. And of course, not near the hole. All right. On the putting green, you can guess what we're going to do here. Same sort of thing, except what do we do? Do we drop it or place it? Yeah. There's only one time on the putting green where we don't place a ball. That's when we're taking relief for something off the green. And the putting green would be an allowable part of where we could drop. For instance, back on the line, we can drop on any part of the course, which would be a putting green. Okay. But anyway, here's what you do. You pick the ball up, get the obstruction out of the way, put it back down. I guess this is where you could try the Houdini thing. Could there be no penalty if the ball goes flying? This just tells us what John Thorman told us on how to place a ball. With your hand, set it on the ground and let it go. Okay, you just hit it in the trash can. You either find it or it's known or virtually certain that it's in there. Okay? And let's just say it's full of garbage and messy and stinky. All right? That's a movable obstruction. I mean, I can pick the trash can up, could probably take it and dump it out, get the ball back. But there's an option. We're not going to say it's lost because it's known or virtually certain. So you got two choices here depending where the ball is on the course. Okay. I don't know why you would ever have a movable obstruction other than like a paper cup on a putting green, but that's what the second part was. So we need to know where the thing, or estimate where it crossed into the object. Like if it was a building, where did it go into the building? Is it on the roof? Is it in through a window? Did it break a window to go in? You have to estimate the point where it crossed the edge. Once you do, that's your reference point, and we assume that's where the ball would be located. So now you've got the ball right next to the removable, okay? And you're going to start taking your relief from there, okay? Now, known or virtually certain. This applies to all of the rules. Why are you taking virtually certain? Because you know where the ball is, you just can't get to it, okay? It's in a building, it's in a trash can, it's down in a pipe. It's somewhere where you know it went, but you can't retrieve it. It's not lost. It's a known location, but it's not retrievable. You've made a definitive decision on that, okay? Now you can make that decision in 1 second, or you can make it in 5 minutes. But the point is, once you get to 3 minutes, you're kind of limited to what's going to happen. You either known it's virtually certain or it's lost at 3 minutes. So let's assume known or virtually certain. You decide after a minute, I know where it is and it's in that wastebasket. Once you make that determination that it's known or virtually certain, the status of your original ball is just, okay? So it doesn't, whether you find the original ball or not, after you make a KVC determination. It's a wrong ball. Okay. And what this says is if you don't have KVC in 3 minutes or haven't made that determination, it's lost. And now Rule 18 is going to tell you where you resume your sequence of strokes from. Okay. So how do you get the general penalty here? Okay. You move the movable obstruction, play it. So any questions on loose impediments or movable obstructions?
We
There
do
are two
have
things.
one.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you may have already covered this, but the question came in. It says, if a gate is part of a boundary object, can you open it to play?
Wait till Rule 16. Okay.
All right, by me. I'm just letting you know that was the question.
Well, I moved all that stuff there, so we're not messing with it here. Because boundary objects are special things, whether they have a gate in them or not. But the short answer is gates and boundary objects are not part of the boundary object. So that should kind of tell you where we're going. If you look up definition of boundary object. Okay. Here's that helping, hurting, I don't like it stuff. 3 parts. First one only applies to a putting green. Second one applies anywhere on the course. And the last one is, what if it's a ball marker and not a ball? Okay. On the putting green, balls at rest. Okay. Anybody can decide that the balls at rest on the green may be helping any other player who still has a stroke to make. And that stroke can be made from on the putting green or off. Okay. So we got 3 players, A, B, and C. B and C have their balls up near the hole on the green, near the flag somewhere. Player C is off the green and he's getting beat. Well, first of all, I'm player C. If I'm thinking those balls are helping me, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to say, hold on a minute. I think these 2 balls could be helping you. we're going to mark them. Okay. So anybody can decide that any ball might be helping either themselves or somebody else. But if they're helping yourselves, why would you call it? Okay. That's just, I hate to say it, but that's just dumb. Let somebody else say, I want my ball out of the way. Okay. But that's the putting green only, balls that rest on the putting green. So basically it's the backstop. So what can you do? Well, first, if it's your ball, you walk up, mark it, and lift it on the putting green because you can do that anytime. Okay. And after the stroke is made, you put it back. If it's somebody else, they're required to mark and lift it and put it back. So that's the whole thing about helping. For balls that rest on the green, any of the players involved can say any ball is helping somebody before, for their next stroke. I want it out of there. One option, if you've been identified as a helping ball in stroke play, you're allowed to play rather than mark it and lift it. Typically, this would be where you're a foot from the hole. You're just going to walk up and brush it in and get it out of the way. If you're 5 feet away, I don't know too many people, I'll just take care of that. That ain't going to happen. But this is where it'd be really close to the hole, and you kind of wonder why they just didn't finish in the first place. Ask if it's okay if I finish and do it. Okay. Now here's where you can get into trouble. This is where players, remember I had A and B with their balls up there near the hole? C's over here, off the green, about to play. And he doesn't say anything. And A and B say, hey, you want us to leave our balls here in case yours hits it? And he goes, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. You know, bad things are happening here. Why? Because we made an agreement. Okay. So you know what's going to happen to all three. But B over on the side say, you think we should leave him there to help him? Well, they've made an agreement, but C doesn't know about it. And to be honest, unless they confess, we'll never know about it either. But anyway, if they agree to leave a ball in place to help any player, and then the stroke is made with the helping ball or balls left in place, everybody who made the agreement picks up 2. Why? Because this is a bad thing. We can't undo it. We can't only say it's only worth 1. We don't know where the ball would have went. And that's all this says here. And the best thing here is, if you know you can't do it and you do it anyway, then you get DQ'd because you violated a rule that you knew you couldn't do. It's okay to be stupid about a rule, but if you know about the rule and do it anyway, then you get DQ'd. It's like you can't tee off before your tee time and you do it anyway because the tee's open and it's outside the 5 minutes. Yeah, bad things like that. You knew it, you couldn't do it, or conceding a hole before you even play it, or conceding, no, you can do that. Conceding a halve on the hole before a stroke is made.
They get the 2-stroke penalty, even if he hits out of the bunker and it comes up short of where their balls are.
This is an intent. Yeah, the question was, the player plays out of the bunker, but he never touches either of the other 2 balls that were at rest. Do they get the penalty? Yeah, this is an intent rule, not a required action. Doesn't have to hit him, it's intent. It's kind of like moving stuff around. It was intended to prevent a ball going a certain place. Whether it did it or not didn't matter. Okay. Anyway, there you go. And there's the DQ part of it. This one, it's in here. All this says is players should be smart enough to know not to do this crap. It's up to them, to the police themselves. If we're an official and we're driving by and we see 2 balls up near the hole and somebody's putting, it's not for us to go, hey, hold on, get those other 2 out of the way. That's for the players to police themselves. Okay. All righty. That was on the putting green only, balls that rest on the putting green. How about elsewhere on the course? And that's only helping. Here we're talking about interfering, and this is where you'll like this one. It's kind of like the bicycle. What is interference and when do you get relief and how do you do it? Okay. Interference. When another player's ball at rest might interfere with the player's stance, swing. It's close enough to your line of play that there's a risk that your shot might hit it after you make the stroke, or distraction. Okay. Which basically says, I don't want it there. How close does it have to be? I don't want it there. So, reasonably believes, and this is where that I don't want it there, but so what? Are you ever going to tell somebody that if I'm here and 3 feet right in the front of my view, no, that shouldn't bother you. That's not the point. I'm telling you it does. I get to decide. And who decides? The player who's going to make the stroke. Not the player whose ball is there, except on the putting green, because you can mark and lift at any time. But the player who's about to make the stroke is the sole decider of what interferes or not. So when that happens, what do? The other player marks and lifts the ball. Can't clean. After the stroke is made, you replace it. Okay? If you don't mark it before you lift it or clean it, 1 stroke penalty. 2 actions, but no intervening event, 1 stroke. Amazing how all these rules eventually tie together. And of course, you could play first. But if they're so close together that it was going to bother swing or stance, I don't know how you can play, because then you know what you do? You'll turn around and say, your ball's interfering with me. Get it out of there. So somebody's going to get that ball moved. Okay. And again, here's what I just said. Only the player who's going to make the stroke decides which ball interferes. On a putting green, again, you can take your ball out of the way anytime. But anywhere else on the course, you don't get to decide if your ball interferes. It's the player making the stroke. Okay? If you don't do it, we're going to get you for a stroke. Okay, ball marker helping or interfering with play. This is anywhere on the course, and this is an easy one. Except for what's a ball marker? Well, we could get into trouble with this depending if it really tough on the rules. Artificial object, which means you can't use a twig, a leaf, stone. Can't use any of those. Okay? But typically, a tee, a coin, something that's supposed to be a ball marker, small piece of equipment like a divot tool. Okay? What do we mean a ball marker moved? Well, a ball has been marked and lifted off the course. It's that's we're talking about. Okay? The ball has not been replaced, but the ball marker is on the course. So it's in place on the course and it gets moved for some reason. Okay? Here we're talking about if it interferes, which is what we were talking about, helping or interfering. Well, if it's interfering, I'm the one who decides if it's interfering if we're anywhere. Okay? Helping, that's on the putting green. Okay? That's anybody can decide that. So how do we do it? Typically a putter head or a club head or something. You could use your shoe to move it, 1 shoe length. But it's some dimension that you can repeat in reverse to get it back. Okay? So yeah, if it's your own, you move it. If it's somebody else's, they do. Okay? So there it is. You go out, then you bring it back the same way. Okay? Penalty of the breach here, general penalty. Now, how would you get the general penalty? Well, first, you don't get the ball back where it was supposed to be. Or second, you refuse to do what you've been asked to do. You ignore the request. That's how you'll get the general penalty on this. Or another way to get it, I guess. I got ahead of it. Sorry. I forgot. There were 3 dots there. I shouldn't have jumped ahead. all this saying, if somebody makes a request for you and you don't wait for it to happen or you do it before, you're going to get dinged. Basically, it's a kind of a misconduct penalty. Spirit of the game, ethics, and all that stuff. We're nice people. Okay. All right. Here's our question again. Unfortunately, it's the thing we just covered. So, A believes B's ball might be at rest and interfere with A's play. Which of the following is not correct? A may require B to mark and lift B's ball, which must not be cleaned except when lifted from the putting green. In stroke play only, if B is required to mark and lift his or her ball, they may play first. Interference exists when B's ball at rest might interfere with A's area of intended swing, but not when B's ball is close enough to distract A in making a stroke. Which one is not correct? Anybody like A? Nope. How about B? Must mean C? Yep. So if it was a tricycle, this is where you could move the tricycle to. Okay. Covered all of those. That's rule 15. Let's
Question.
take, got a question? Go ahead.
If a player's ball on the putting green still accidentally hits the ball marker, is that just a play the ball as it lies situation?
Did the player ask for the ball marker to be moved?
No.
Play it as it lies. Essentially, you hit a movable obstruction in case you play it where it lies. I believe that's rule 11.1 B or C.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take 5. That wasn't too bad, was it? Okay. Actually got done 10 minutes early.
Your audio is still on.
I know. Close enough to go? Close enough to go? Alvin, you there?
Yeah, I have another question for you.
Go ahead.
If a ball is on a leaf in the general area and the player cannot identify the ball,
And
does the player need to replace the leaf or a similar leaf to keep the verticality of the lie?
well, we just talked about this in the back of the room. If it's on a leaf, your first choice would be to lift the ball off the leaf to identify it and then set it back down on the leaf. Why? Because you can't remove the leaf if the ball would have moved when you wanted to. Okay, so that's that one exception. You can't do that. But the least intrusive way would have been to lift the ball off the leaf, identify it, and replace it. Now, here's the analogy I would give you. You want to identify your ball. You pick it up and there's mud on half of it, but you can still identify it. You can't clean the mud off just because you lifted it. You got to put it back down with the mud on it. So the leaf's kind of the same thing in this case. It was
Hey,
there.
Go,
It's
go,
going to
go,
stay there.
go back 15 seconds. The internet cut out.
Okay. It's the same as if you had mud on the ball when you lifted it up to identify it. You can't get the mud off if you didn't need to. If the leaf is still on the ground in the same place, that's the lie you had. So that's the one you're going to get back.
But if in the process, wind comes along and blows the leaf away,
Then you got one lucky day.
yeah. And I recall that John covered this in a Slegro meeting not too long ago.
Yeah, well, in the back, we asked the one, what if the leaf stuck to the ball when you lifted it? Could you shake it off then? And I'd say no, because it was a loose impediment, but it was adhering to the ball. So it's going back down with the ball.
And removing it would probably be an act of cleaning it.
Yep. Place. Place. But you still place it back. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Rule 16. Abnormal course conditions. There's 4. Dangerous animal conditions, embedded ball. We make a stroke, the ball comes to rest. Ideally, we play it from where it came to rest. You take a look at this list, you're going to realize is you might not want to or might not be able to play it from where it came to rest. Play it from where it came to rest. You have a free relief option that's available. It's not mandatory that the player can exercise. In this case, since we can't move the thing, we're going to move the ball. And as soon as we talk about moving the ball, we have to know about Rule 14, how we return it to play. We either drop it, and we went through that in great detail in Rule 14, drop, drop, place, or replace, okay? But we're going to a new spot, so in general, we're going to be, that spot has to be located and what we do when we get there. And that's going to come to a term that you need to really get familiar with and understand: nearest point of complete relief. That's not where your feet are. It's where the ball would eliminate the interference. Okay? Where would the ball be? And there's an example when we get to it, I'll show you, where many, many players misidentify the nearest point of complete relief and they're cheating themselves. So here we go. We got 4 parts. What's bad is part 1 has like 7 subparts. Okay? Abnormal course conditions, which include, finally, immovable obstructions. Dangerous animal conditions. Interesting here. Insects can be animals. They're in the rule we are here. Embedded ball. We've seen that. That's a relatively new thing, I think, 2019-ish. And finally, this last part, point 4, it's similar to what you have to do if you're not sure it's your ball, or you mark it, lift it to identify it. You're entitled to relief. You can mark it, lift, and check to see if you're entitled to relief condition. Okay. So that's its corollary with Rule 7. It was such a good idea, they kept it. Okay, here we go. Abnormal course conditions, we have 4. Animal holes, ground under repair, immovable obstructions, temporary water. What do we do if we get them? Well, first of all, you don't have to take relief, but if you do, nearest point of complete relief, it's the key thing. What is it? How do we find it? If you do that, that's your basic free relief, okay? Penalty relief from bunkers. This is an additional option available to take relief for an abnormal course condition in a bunker. It's going to get you out of the bunker, but it isn't free. Pretty much here, good rule of thumb. Whatever area of the course your ball is in when you decide to take relief, that's the area of the course you're going to have to play from. If you're in a bunker, you're going to get your free relief in the bunker. If you're in the general area, your free relief is going to be in the general area. If you're in a penalty area, forget Rule 16, it doesn't apply. Okay, ball not found free relief, that's known or virtually certain again. And finally, no play zone. We see that here and in Rule 17, same principle, but no play zones are one of the few places on the course other than out of bounds, which is the other, where the player does not have a choice of whether to take relief or not. Ball out of bounds, you only have one choice, stroke and distance. No play zone, you do not have the option to play it where it lies. You will take relief. Dangerous animal conditions, well, you can kind of guess that one, get far enough away. And embedded balls. And last, what if you're not sure where you are? So, free relief from a different place. That's what we're doing here under this rule. Getting to a different part of the course, not area, but part, where we can resume the strokes, sequence of strokes. There's the things that could cause it. These things, as we said, kind of like movable obstructions and loose impediments, we don't really deem those as part of the challenge of playing. It's hard enough as it is, playing off a cart path or off a rock wall or from a fence. Not really part of the challenge of the game. How do we do it? Well, we pick the ball up, we get it in place somewhere else under Rule 14 using those provisions, which essentially means the location, while it's known by maybe the area of the course, its specific spot is now going to be random. We're going to generate a random spot on the course for the ball by the drop. Okay, embedded in its own pitch mark, embedded ball, we'll get to that. Remember, I told you we had a lot of parts of this one. We end up taking a break after these. Okay, abnormal course conditions, remember there's 4 of them. So what do we got? When can we take relief? Okay, the relief depends on, is it in the general area, a bunker, putting green? We don't have to worry about this in the teeing area because we already know what we can do there. Okay. And penalty area, separate thing. That has its own rule for how we get the ball back into play, which is another way of saying you can't use Rule 16 in a penalty area, except maybe 2 parts. Dangerous animal condition and what's the third? What's the other one? Anyway, but that relief, oh, no play zone. Okay. Dangerous animal condition, we get to 17. It won't get you out of the penalty area, get you to a different part of it. Okay. So off we go. Here's our question. File it away. Stroke play. Always you want to know that. Stroke or match. Player's ball lies in bounds. Where? In the general area. The swing is interference from a metal chain link fence, not defining out of bounds, but all of which lies out of bounds. The player takes relief under the abnormal course conditions relief rule and plays the ball. What is the ruling? No penalty, 1 stroke, general penalty. So, stroke play, where's the ball? In bounds. What part of the course? General area. And what's the condition? Chain link fence. And where is it? Out of bounds. So here we go. Remember what we could do in Rule 15 with stuff out of bounds? Loose impediments, movable obstructions like that trike? Okay, remember that. So there they are again. We got 4 pictures. From left to right, animal hole, ground under repair, and a movable obstruction, probably the one we come across the most, cart pass. And finally, temporary water. Each of these has a definition, and we're going to go through them. Animal hole, dug in the ground by an animal. We got 3 dots, except for insects. Insects don't make animal holes. They leave casts or piles. But those aren't sand or loose soil either. They're loose impediments. The junk they leave behind is not a loose, it's a loose impediment. You can get it out of the way, but it's not a hole. So you can't take relief from an animal mound under this hole, under this rule, because it's not a hole. Okay? What does it include? Well, anything that gets thrown out, any worn down track or trail into it, and this one we see, I've seen at least a couple of times on putting greens, any distortion of the ground from the animal burrowing underneath. Had it happen over at Sunset Hills on the 14th hole. A mole or a gopher had gone 2/3 of the way across the green. So we had to find another spot on the green for the players who ended up on one side of the mound. Okay. Isolated footprints are not a track. Don't count. No relief from those unless we invoke a local rule that says you can, but it's not standard. So isolated hoof prints, even though they leave a path, it's not a worn down trail, so you don't get relief from each one or any one. Once again, we're repeating this for animals. This is the general definition of an animal. We already told you for a hole, don't count insects. Well, now we're putting them back in when we talk about animals again, in general. Ground under repair. This one goes for a while. Any part of the course the committee says is ... whether they mark it or not. Well, if they haven't marked it, how do we know? Guess what? If they've marked it, it's all the ground inside the defined area, including anything rooted inside the area that extends up out of the ground and actually extends outside the edge. So a tree that has branches hanging outside the edge, the branches hanging outside the edge are still part of the ground under repair. But you can read this part, but the next picture shows you. It doesn't include anything that grew under the ground outside the area. So like the roots that extended outside of the marked area, not part of the ground under repair. Here's the things that the committee will never mark as ground under repair. Okay, we got 3 things there. Any hole made by the committee or the maintenance staff in setting up or maintaining the course. For instance, every stake they put in the ground has a hole. If someone has taken the stake out and left the hole there, that hole is ground under repair as far as this rule is concerned, okay? Now, ideally, if you see that and you walk by, you'd put the stake back in after you're done. This one also include, I think Mike had this in Rule 13. You got the hole on the green, part of the hole you're playing, that hole made by the committee. Okay, maintaining the course. Basically, any construction on the course is going to be ground under repair, marked or not. Since the construction tends to be temporary and can keep moving around, it's kind of hard to put a white line around it. Like here where they've dug a trench basically across the entire hole, okay? So what's interesting here is, but they exclude aeration holes. Here you've got the hole, which we know is, how about all the material that's laid outside it there? What's the status of that? And hold on a slide. Cuttings, leaves, and any other material piled for later removal. I guarantee you all that loose soil out there is going to be removed later. Because on itself, soil is not a loose impediment, right? But it's material piled for later removal. Where's it going to be removed? Back into the hole. But that doesn't matter. There's how you get around it here, okay? Natural materials that are piled for removal are also loose impediments, except for soil. Remember, sand aren't, except on the putting green. So, impediments, which means you got a choice. Okay, I can take relief under this rule, or I can move the loose impediments out of my way. And if you're a good player, both options, decide which one. Okay. Materials left on the course, not intended to be removed, but they're a pile. They aren't ground under repair unless the committee says so. I'm going to go back a couple. Okay. Here we got clippings piled. Where are they piled? Next to a cart path. If I get called over for that, I'm going to say, yeah, I think they intend to move that. That's piled for removal because of where it is on the course. I take that same pile and move it 20 yards off the fairway and dump it in the rough. That's not piled for removal. Okay? It's a judgment call, but that's the call I would make. They're never coming back for it. It's still a loose impediment, but it's not material piled up for removal under this rule. Okay? So basically, it's where's your pile? Where'd they leave it? If it's still there next year when you come back, yeah, you'll know what the ruling should be. Okay. Animal habitat. We're talking about animals again. Guess who's going to get left out? Bird's nest or anything else where the stroke or stance might destroy it or disturb it. Except when it's made by insects. Those insects get no respect, do they? So up there we've got, looks like a bee's nest or something like that. Okay? It's not a habitat because they ain't animals. Down at the bottom, we've got worm casts or anthills again, which aren't wormholes. They're not holes, but again, they're loose impediments that we can get rid of that way. Okay? Now, what do we do about that bee's nest? You'll find out if you haven't guessed already. So GUR, we've seen things that are defined by the committee and things that aren't defined, the player can reasonably and take relief on his own. Okay. 3 ways we can define it. First one, stakes. The other 2, lines or physical features. In turn, stakes. Okay, we've got 4 stakes here around something. Basically, it's the same thing as if it was out of bounds. It's the outside edge of the stakes. The line around the outside edges defines the edge of the ground under repair. And the stakes are in the area. And out of bounds, red line on the ground is in the penalty area. A white line on the ground for ground under repair is in the ground under repair. Okay? When it's on the edge, And we're talking about ground level here for this, because remember, it's ground under repair. It's not air under repair, it's ground. Okay, there's the lines on the ground. Outside edge of the line. The line's in it. Features. This is typically for like a landscaped area, or you may have a curbing around it, or just a neatly cut edge in the grass. It's up to the committee to say how it's defined, but typically it would be the cut edge or the outside edge of the stones or the lining, whatever it is. Okay, but it's got to be noted then. Okay. Here again, we've got lines and a stake. Oh my gosh, what do we do now? Well, lines or stakes control. Lines take precedence over anything else. If you got a line on the ground and you got stakes, the only reason the stakes are there is so if I'm 20 yards away walking up to this, I see a white stake, I know there's probably ground under repair over there. If that's the only white stake there, it's not going to be out of bounds, but they're warning me something else is there. There we've got the stakes again, whether it defines or shows it, guess what else? What are they? They're artificial. Unless they're anchored in concrete, they're movable. Yeah, Rule 15.2. Okay. Obstructions. We've seen this one before, so we'll skip this one. Here's those two things again that look like it but aren't because of how they're used in the play of the game and maintenance of the course and use of the course. Integral objects and boundary objects. This is probably the more important one. Boundary objects, what are they? They show the edge of the course. That's what they're there for. You're on the wrong side of one of these, you're not on the course and you can't play the ball from there. And you're going to need Rule 18 to get you back on the course, okay? So what can it be though? Walls, fences, stakes, railings, free relief is not allowed, okay? What does it include? Well, typically for a fence, it's the post and whatever the post is anchored into, if it is, and not just pounded into the ground. Now, every time we have a fence, in general, it's set up like this, where the playable part of the course is to the left side in this picture, to the post side, because the edge is going to be defined at ground level as the line from the inside edge of the post from post to post as we go, which means what? The post itself is out of bounds and the chain link fence itself is out of bounds, consistent with what we said. Okay. We really don't want to use a fence where the chain link is on the course side of the post. And then you say the post is the edge. And you don't want to use the chain link fence because it's too irregular a surface. You can't draw a line. So we really don't like using that if we had a choice. Probably if we had this, Kurt would probably come out and put a line there if he had to, because it's too hard to define it otherwise if the fence is on the wrong side.
I don't think the ball would technically already be out of bounds, correct?
The question was, in this picture, if your ball was up against the link fence, you'd probably be out of bounds. Well, if you can, I don't know if you can see the picture, but there's like 3 balls laying there. Right? And this doesn't show. But by the top red arrow coming over, there's a ball up against the fence there. Now, most posts we use are bigger in dimension than 1.68 inches, okay, which is the size of your golf ball. So if you're up against the fence, you're going to be out of bounds, okay? Okay. Things not included in the boundary object. Well, anything holding it and keeping it from falling over, okay? We care about this if they'd be on the course. If they're off the course in somebody's yard, okay, we don't really care then. But they're not part of the boundary object, okay? And here's something else that isn't. And it's in the definition of boundary object. It says it excludes gates, steps, bridges, or anything else you use to get over it or through it. Okay? So what does that mean? Now let's take that fence at the top and say that's a boundary object. I can't tell where the chain link is, but I hope it's on the other side of the post. But anyway, let's assume it is. So you come up against this gate. What do we do with it if it's, say, our ball is somewhere between the limits of the gate? Okay? Well, it's not part of the boundary object by definition. What is it? It's artificial. So it's an obstruction. So here's an instance where you would get relief from that part of the fence. I'm going to say it's an obstruction because I'm assuming here it's chain shut or something where we can't move it. Okay? If it's movable, you'd swing it out of the way because it's a movable obstruction. Play your shot because remember, you don't move the ball for a movable obstruction. You play it where it is. So you'd swing the gate out of the way, play your shot, close it back up. But gates and boundary objects ain't part of the boundary objects. They're obstructions. So you would get relief for if it's movable, you move it. If it's not movable, for stance, swing, just like we're going to see later here. Okay? Boundary objects are treated as immovable, even if they are movable or any part of them is movable. First of all, a gate is not part of, so they're contradictory, but a gate is not part of the boundary object. So that's not part of this discussion. So here, for instance, we've got stakes on the ground. They're movable, but since they're the boundary object, you can't move them. And you'll find the same thing in Rule 8, cats. Okay? I'm trying to think what about, oh, remember that stone wall? All those stones, they're movable, but if it's the boundary object, you can't move them. That's a better example. But the gate's the one that always seems like a contradiction between the two slides until you realize, by definition, the gate ain't part of the boundary object. Okay, here's some other things that aren't, okay? A boundary object is not an obstruction, okay? But the gate in it might be, and it's not an integral object. Integral objects, again, it looks like it, but I've never seen an integral object used as a boundary object. It's a boundary object. Integral objects are treated as part of the challenge of playing the course. Okay? But there's no relief for it. So here it is. It's something defined by the committee. Could be just a plain obstruction, but for whatever reason, they decided it's an integral part of playing the course. No free relief. They're removable. No. But if part of it is movable, it's treated. Now that rock wall, this fence was considered to be caused by a maintenance shed, let's say, had a gate in it. Okay, but they said no relief from the gate or no relief from the fence when you're over there because you shouldn't have hit it 50 yards offline. So deal with it. But if you got a movable part here, okay, then it's a movable obstruction. This one about the attached cable on the tree, I thought about that one. The only time I've seen wires, cables on trees like this, there's a light up in the tree, a spotlight, or it's a lightning rod downcomer to a rod in the ground. Okay. It's kind of movable, but most of them are stapled to the tree or nailed to the tree where you can't really pull them off. So I don't know how movable it would be. And I really don't know how you would ever come across this where you'd want relief from it. Where it would be considered movable, but I guess if it's loosely wrapped around it, maybe you could unwrap it. Okay. Again, integral objects, they're not obstructions, they're not boundary objects, they're just things, deal with it. Finally, everything that's left over. We've seen the list, so we're not going to read it again. We'll just get them all up at once. It's too fast. It's that same list. Okay, movable, immovable. Well, we dealt with movable in 15, so now we're dealing with the other ones. Okay, we can't move the cart paths. We're gonna, if we choose to take relief, we're gonna move the ball, or you play it. You may look where your relief is and decide this cart path ain't looking so bad. You would never, but in a tournament you might. Okay, immovable. This is the one we care about under this rule. You can't move it without unreasonable effort, which means 30 people. And you can't do it without damaging the obstruction of the course. So you can't break it into pieces to get it out of the way. And if you pick it up and take it out of the way and there's a hole in the ground, you've damaged the course. Okay? You leave a gaping hole where you remove this object. That's not what was intended. Okay? Here's our split rail fence again. Parts of it are movable, but the committee says the split rail fence to the right of hole 4 is the movable obstruction. That's it. You get relief from it, but you can't take it apart. Unless Kurt calls it an integral object, in which case you can't get relief from it and you can't take it out. So you're bad. By the way, I goofed that up. If it's an immovable obstruction, you get relief. Okay, our last one, temporary water. This used to be called casual water. If you listen to golf on TV, it's still called casual water. You would think after 5, 6 years, they'd finally lost that, but they haven't. Temporary accumulation of water on the surface of the ground, outside a penalty area. You can't have temporary water in a penalty area. That's the real thing. Okay? Anywhere else on the course, yeah. Okay? This is the one we argue with all the time with players. It has to be seen before or after the player. In other words, I can walk up within 5 feet of the ball, and if I see the ball's lying in a puddle of water, or I'm going to be standing in a puddle of water, good enough. But if I can't visibly see it when I walk up, then it's going to come down to when I take my stance without pressing down your feet. The phrase we like to use is stance, don't dance. We're talking a static position by the player. Because you can always put one foot down and put your weight on it and squish it down and maybe get some water to come up. But as soon as you put the other foot down and even your weight out, lots of times that water disappears, in which case it don't count. So wet, I mean moisture on the ground early in the morning, don't count. Some mud, don't count. Just plain soft to your foot, don't count. There's the momentarily visible. You put one down heavy, oh, look at that. Put the other one down, it disappeared. Or you rock back and forth. Don't count. Stand there, don't move. That's what happened to, who was it? Sam Burns at Oakmont, right side of the 14th or 15th fairway. Clearly the course was wet, but the problem was when he got there and stood there, you couldn't see the water. When the first official said no, I knew what was going to happen. I knew he was going to ask for a second opinion, knew it was going to get overturned, and I knew as soon as he hit the ball, water was going to, which it did. But couldn't see it when he took his stance, and it wasn't visible under the ball. Sorry. And that one, people still yell at me about that. I said, I'd have given the same ruling. Sorry. And actually, you could see Burns kind of doing back and forth from foot to foot. See, look, as soon as he stopped, the official said, don't see it now. Okay, see, it has to remain present. It just can't be when I bounce up and down. Here we got some dual identities again. Dew and frost are never temporary water, but you can handle them in the teeing area. Snow and ice, we already covered this. They're either loosened or when on the ground only. Manufactured, by definition, is an obstruction because it's artificial. Natural water doesn't come in little cubes. Okay. So we've covered all four of the things. Okay. We're allowed free relief from them if we choose. Now the only question is going to be where and how. So there we are. We don't get relief from movable obstructions. Now we have to go to Rule 15. We don't get anything from boundary objects or integral objects. The rule says that. Here it is, the heartbreaker for this rule, nearest point of complete relief. That's a lot. I'll let you read it. Everybody got it? Okay. It's a reference point for taking free relief at the player's option. You didn't have to, but you decided to. Under this rule, for abnormal course condition, dangerous animal condition. Remember Mike's wrong green in Rule 13? He had to identify the nearest point of complete relief. Get his stance off the wrong green, determine the nearest point of complete relief, and then he gets his semicircle to drop in. Okay? The reference point is where we start our relief area from. A no play zone under this rule and other local, and the biggest one I know is TIOs. Here's the key point of this. Estimated point where the ball would lie. Ball, not feet. Nearest to the ball's original spot, not near the hole. Everything's not near the hole. We're not going to let you gain an inch when you do this stuff. In the required area of the course, pretty much your relief is going to be in the same area of the course that the abnormal course condition was in, if you want free relief. Or we have no interference, is the rule we're using, for the stroke the player would made from the original spot if the condition wasn't there, irrespective of what else is around there. You could be in the middle of a forest of trees, but if you're taking relief from temporary water in the trees, all we care about is getting you out of the temporary water, not anything that happens from the trees that are still there or a concrete wall in front of you. It's getting you out of this condition. It's not guaranteeing you, with one exception, live play. Okay? This is the classic, balls on a cart path, okay? The player is demonstrating left and right. Okay?
The nearest point of relief is the spot the shortest distance away from where your ball lies, either left of, right of, or behind it, that isn't closer to the hole, and where, if your ball was there, you could make a stroke at it without any interference to your resulting lie, stance, and swing.
Okay, here's an isolated, immovable obstruction. 3 points were checked, left, right, and back. When he went to the left, what controlled? Getting the ball just away from the concrete, okay? When he went to the right, what controlled? He had to get his stance clear of the concrete to locate the ball. When he went behind it, just had to get half a stance away. So depending which way you go, a different part of your body, or maybe not your body at all, will control where that nearest point is. Be as close as 2 feet or as far as 5 feet from where the original ball was. But we can only use one, the nearest. So, how do you do it? Well, what club would you play? What stance would you take? What's your swing? And where are you going for that stroke if the cart path wasn't there in this case? You can see we got trees and stuff up ahead of them. They only matter for the swing you were going to play and the flight of the ball. That's it. But if you look at it here, if we look to the right to get the ball in a position where he doesn't have interference, the only interference he's going to have is from his feet, his stance. So he gets his feet clear on the right, where his club soles, that's where he would have to put the ball. If he comes the other way, he only has to go like a foot off to get the ball clear for the swing, and his stance is automatically clear. So in this case, his nearest point of complete relief is going to be to the left. Okay? Now, of course, what happens if this nearest point of complete relief over here is in 6 feet of grass? Doesn't matter. He's getting away from the cart path. He's not getting away from the grass. So if you're the player, look before you leap. Look before you drop. Because almost everybody, even if they say, well, it's right in the middle, I can go either side. No, you can't. Because to one side where your feet are going to control to move the ball at least 3 feet farther away, to the other side, 1 foot. Common mistake. Now, the other thing is, what a lot of players will do, let's assume that to the right was the correct place because the ball was closer to that side of the path to start with. He gets his feet clear. I still see players put the tee in the ground where his feet are and measure their 1 club length from there. Now, you can swing that quarter of a circle, and guess what? Part of it will still be in the correct relief area, but part of it won't. And if you happen to be there, you probably want to stop them before they drop because they may not get the ball in the correct relief area based on the nearest point of complete relief. They still seem to think I get 1 club length from the nearest point, and anywhere along that 1 club length will do. Okay, it's not. But you still see people do that. They will put that tee in the ground right where their feet are. If they put it over where the ball is, and I had this happen at St. Albans, and I watched it from across the fairway. He took relief from the cart path, put the tee in the ground where his feet were, measured 1 club length, and dropped the ball, and he was an 1.5 of rough. Had he taken where the ball was and measured his 1 club length, he could have dropped it in the fairway. It's his choice, and he did get it in the relief area because he dropped it right on the line. But still, he cheated himself. Have a, yeah,
There was like a foot strip there to the left, and then there was penalty area. Is he still dropping there, even though he's gonna be standing in the penalty area? I know he can't drop in the penalty area.
okay, the question was, looking at this picture for the guy on the left, 2 feet from the edge of the cart path, there's a red penalty area. Where's his nearest point of relief? What are we giving relief for? For what part of it? The lie. Okay. Now we got to get everything off, but we're getting the lie off. Okay. All that matters here is do we get the ball in position where we have no interference from the cart path for the ball, the stance, or the swing? And we did. The fact that it's a penalty area doesn't matter because we're not putting the ball there. We're still dropping the ball in the general area. And you'll see this in Rule 17. This is another common misperception. If you're in a penalty area, you got to get your feet out too. No, you don't. 17, get your ball back out of the penalty area, and that's it. So you can take your 2 club lengths lateral and drop the ball, and if it rolls back 3 inches outside the penalty area and you're standing 2 feet in it, that's in play. Had that happen in a girls' district tournament, the coach said, no, you have to take relief again. So she picked up a ball in play and dropped it again on a cart path. Said, well, I can't do this. He said, well, you just pick it up and move it to the other side. Oops, 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 oops. But no, you're only getting relief for the ball. And if that puts your stance somewhere else, like in 6 feet of grass or something.
And if there was a boundary fence, same thing, tough luck.
The next part of the question was, what if 2 feet over there was a boundary fence? Okay? We'll get to that one in a little bit. That's the St. Albans issue. Okay. So you don't have to do all this stuff, but it works better because if you do this, you'll see if you're going to be in trouble before you actually pick the damn ball up. Okay. Here again, well, this is just all we said. Nearest point of complete relief, what condition are you getting away from? Not where is it going to put you initially, but what are you getting away from? You might want to look where you're going to be, okay, if you take the relief, because then you don't get a choice. So you want to look where you're going to be before you decide to take the relief. So here he's going to be, well, they'll tell you.
The nearest point isn't always the nicest point. In this case, the player's nearest point of complete relief from this path is under the tree, not to the left of the path in the clear. So, it's a good idea not to lift your ball before figuring this out, because sometimes the best option is to just play the ball as it lies.
Especially if you can borrow somebody else's club. Okay? So, you get off the one condition. If you find another from which relief is allowed, you address that one at that time. Okay? Find a new point, nearest point of complete relief, and you go again. So it's possible you can go from a cart path to temporary water to finally a place you can reasonably make a play from, or you decide to. Now, you have to do one at a time. You can't do both at the same time unless you already figured out if I go from condition A, it puts me in condition B, and condition B puts me back in condition A. In which case, once you've determined that, you find a common point, nearest common point, and go from there. And by the way, well, yeah, the one I was going to think of doesn't matter. If you're in a penalty area, you always have to take that relief first. Okay? So there it just says you're going to go back and forth, find a common area, and we go there. Questions on nearest point of complete relief? You've locked it in. It's where the ball has to be, right? Okay.
Jackie, no stroke penalty there, but have to take the stroke if he went to the other.
The question was for the guy whose nearest point of complete relief was in the trees. If he took the relief into the trees and dropped the ball, what could he do there? Okay. Well, you can play it, but he has no interference with an abnormal course condition. Unless there's a dangerous animal, I don't see one. Didn't see an animal hole. The only available relief he would have is Rule 19, unplayable ball. And that's going to limit where he can take his relief. Okay? You got three choices under that. Where you last played from, your last stroke was made, back on the line, or 2 club lengths laterally in any direction, no near the hole. 2 club lengths to the left probably is going to put you right in the middle of the cart path. May or may not get you to the left side. So look before you leap. Okay. When do we have interference? Okay. We can take it under this rule anywhere except for when your ball's in a penalty area, or it's clearly unreasonable to play the ball the way. Okay. You have the interference when the ball is in or on an abnormal course condition. In would be like ground under repair, in temporary water. Okay. On would be on a cart path. The condition interferes with stance, area intended swing, and on the putting green only, line of play. And unfortunately, you can't use Rule 15.3 It bothers me. Distraction does not count. And I have seen this. Somebody actually asked me once. It's right there where I can see it. I said, yeah, I know. Unfortunately, the ball's clear and your stance is clear. Wasn't quite as snotty as that, but I said, sorry, you don't get relief just because it's in your line of sight. Okay. This one we typically see. One of the abnormal course conditions is ground under repair, new sod seams or aeration holes. Typically, we will use this local rule when the ball is on a sod seam or on an aeration hole. We will give you relief for your ball line, but not if you're standing on the seam or standing on an aeration hole. Okay, but we'll let you get the ball off. It's a local rule, automatic. Okay, so when do you get relief? Well, basically anywhere on the course except one place, penalty area, under this rule. Okay, so, but there's more to it than that. Both your ball and the abnormal course condition have to be on the course. Remember under Rule 15, loose impediments and movable obstructions, they could be off the course. And if we had to stand off the course to play our ball, we could move those. Here, if your ball is on the course and you're standing in water off the course, your shoes are just going to get wet. Simple as that. And there's the balls in the penalty area, but the stance is on the cart path. Sorry. Nothing for standing on the cart path. Got to get out of the penalty area first. Here's the other part of it. When you had no chance of hitting the ball anyway, but you create an interference to make it look like it. Here we got one, it's up against a bunch of branches and buried stuff. And then the bottom one looks like it's an old tree trunk or something. But I don't know what kind of swing you were going to make at either one of those. But if you happen to be standing on a cart path while you're trying to do it, we're not going to give you relief for that because you had nothing to start with. This one I kind of like. I like to call this the semi-biasteros rule because he used to do stuff like this. Here we got a player. Looks like he's, I'm going to say, less than 100 yards to the green. The flag stick, I don't know if you can see it, but it's just to the right of the last bunker. Okay. So he's probably got a wedge of some kind in his hand, but he's in the rough. And just behind him, there's what appears to be a drain. So here's what he does. Now, he calls you over and says, hey, do I get relief here? I said, well, what for? Yeah, I'm standing on the drain. I said, yeah, what do we got here for your yardage? Oh, 72 yards. What club you got? Sand wedge? How do you intend to play this? Well, I was going to take it at the right side of the green and then draw it back into the flag stick. That's why I got my closed stance here. That's not a reasonable shot, okay? Now, here's your question. Sometimes you have to do dumb stuff to even have a shot at all, okay? If a weird stance or swing is the only thing you got, well, then we'll see what happens. For example, I'll let you read it. This is St. Albans, the second or third hole on the left side. On the left side of the second and third hole at St. Albans, we have a white boundary fence. By the way, there's 2 gates in it, but for this purposes, you're not near one of those. Immediately to the course side of that fence, there's about 2 foot of grass. Then we have a cart path. Then we resume the general area. It is not unusual during the course of play to hit a ball into that 2 foot patch of grass between the fence, the boundary fence, and the cart path. They come over there and they take a right-handed stance. And the first, do I get relief from this fence? And the first thing I say is, it's a boundary object, no. And well, so what's my choice? I said, well, you can play it, but you get no relief from the fence. Okay? And that, for some of them, that's good enough. Chip it out. Okay? But at least one player in our history, can I stand around or this club? The answer is yes. Well, he can't take any relief left-handed towards the boundary fence because he's still on the path. So for the left-handed stroke, his relief is to the other side of the path. Okay? So in that case, what was a reasonable stroke generates interference from which he gets relief. Okay? Now, there you go. That says, yeah, that makes sense. Here's the best part. Once he gets it over there, he doesn't have to make a left-handed swing anymore. He can change the direction of swing, the direction of play, the club he's going to use, the stance. Now he stands there right-handed. His feet are still on the cart path. Now he gets relief again from the same immovable obstruction, and away you go. But as the official, you can't tell him to do that. Why? Remember Rule 10? Advice. Can't tell him that that's an option you can take under the rules to create the interference. If he can't figure it out, you can't tell him. But if he says, what if? Then you can tell him, yeah, that's okay. But that would literally be the worst example of being given a player advice for an official. You just can't do that.
Take the relief as if he's a left-handed player.
Initially, yes. But once he's done, yeah. Because once you've taken relief, it's a new condition. Okay?
What are all of my options?
Yeah, but one of them isn't to turn around and play left-handed because that would be advice on how to play the next shot, the hole, or anything else, or to avoid a penalty. See, that's why you can't do it. Yeah, yeah. You can take it out. You can take it unplayable, or you can play, yeah, stroke and distance.
But yeah,
They're not the
Yeah, but not how to play the shot. See, anything about how to play the shot is advice. In fact, what was it, 2 years ago? On three balls over there in that area. The first guy called me over. He said, what can I do here? I said, what's your question? He said, well, this fence is in the way of my swing. I said, it's a boundary object. He says, oh, okay, I got it. And he didn't say anything else. He didn't ask anything else. He chipped it out, hit it on the green, and made the putt. The second player, same thing. I can't swing here. What can I do? I said, well, it's a boundary object. You get no relief. What do you mean I get no relief? It's a boundary object. There's no free relief. His answer was, that's a shitty ruling. We'd never get that ruling on the Corn Ferry Tour. Well, my snide answer was, you aren't on the Corn Ferry Tour today. My answer was, we talked about this in the rules meeting before play today. That's the ruling here. The third player just said, oh God, I can't do much here, can I? I said, well, what are you saying? He says, I either take unplayable or chip it out. Those are the two options that you're asking. Either one of those is acceptable, yeah. Okay. Anyway, all this says is you can't fake it to get relief. You can't, kind of like the ball in the stump, you can't fake a stance or something else to create the interference. Okay. Now here's one to avoid a bad lie. Okay. Same thing with the guy who decided to play a 70-yard hook with a wedge. Okay. TIOs, they have their own special ways of taking relief. Okay. Finally, balls in, we've determined what interference is. For in the general area, what do we do? Okay. You can take free relief by dropping the ball. In fact, anytime you take relief, you can substitute a ball. Every time you drop. If you have to drop twice, you can use a different ball each time. Okay. But where do you drop it? Nearest point of complete relief. Again, it's find that point where you put the ball where you're clear of the obstruction from the interference. That's stance, swing, lie. Okay. That reference point becomes the place where you strike that half circle. Okay. In this case, we were in the general area. That reference point has to be in the general area. And the only part of the relief area we can use is in the general area. It must be in the general area. So how big? 1 club length. By the way, free relief is always 1 club length. Penalty relief is 2. So here we are in the general area, not near the hole, complete relief from the thing we're getting away from. Okay? Put it in play with a good drop and off you go. Ball in a bunker. I hate this one. You encounter an abnormal course condition, they always show water. They never show an animal hole or ground under repair. It's always a stick in water. So if I'm going to take free relief, where does it have to be? In the bunker. Yeah. You can get pit. That's part of taking the free relief. The nearest point, near the hole. Goes without saying, so I didn't say it. You can take penalty relief outside the bunker under this rule. Now, under Rule 19, you have other penalty relief, but that's Rule 19. Because the player can declare his ball unplayable anywhere on the course except a penalty area, in which case you go back where you last played from, or 2 club lengths, or back on the line. Okay? So this is just under this rule. So there's what we said for general area. Now we're just going to edit the rule. Now it's in the bunker. It's 1 club length, but this is the clean version. Okay, your abnormal course condition has plenty of sand around it. So you can find a spot and you drop it in there. Okay. This is the horseshit version. Half the bunker is full of water and it's all nearer the hole than you are. So you can't get out of it, basically, and stay in the bunker. Okay. Point of maximum relief. This is still free, but you may need a new pair of shoes. So this applies to 2 places. Here where the bunker, also putting green. I'm going to skip over that slide because we see it later when we get to it. Okay. There's no complete relief available from where the ball is playing towards the hole. We can't move into the sand because we're near the hole and where the ball was. So we have to move left, right, or back, but we're still going to be in the water. Okay. So what we can do is determine somewhere in that where we have the least interference, the nearest point with least interference. Okay. So what's that going to be? Well, we're going to have to estimate the club we would have used and everything, all that same stuff. Okay. We don't really want you to go in there yet. But 1 of 2 things will happen. When you find that spot, and you figure that's where the ball would have to be, either there's going to be more water on your feet or more water at the ball. It's highly unlikely 1 or both of them will be partially out of the water. One place you're going to be wetter than the other. If you want your free relief in the bunker, that's where you got to play. On the putting green, you get line of play. Remember that? So we'll see this picture again. So that's what we said. That point of relief could be in the shallow part where your feet will be wet, but the ball's better. Or it could be a place where your feet are dry and the ball's in bigger water. But it's the nearest point that's going to generate 1 of those 2 conditions probably. Okay. Here's the putting green again. Okay. In that case, here we got a moat of water. Can't avoid it on the line of play. So basically, you're going to pick what I want to do. Go through the shallowest water or the least amount. Of course, you do have a third choice. Play it where it lied and chip it over the water, or play it through the water. So here's the standard stuff out of the bunker. So really, if we have that much water in a bunker, I'm really hoping it's out in the middle of it as the rules official. It's supposed to be where the drain is anyway. So we already talked about standard in the bunker, and that's what we see up there. We've got the condition in the bunker. We got the ball. We found our relief area. We play it from there. What if you see where you're going to be dropping and it's soft, wet sand and you know the ball's going to sit down in it? You say, geez, that's no better. I don't like that. This is your option for a penalty stroke. Go back on the line outside the play there. Okay? And we're going to talk about back on the line in a bit here. Come on. Any area of the course except the same bunker, that's important. You can go back and drop in another bunker. You can drop in a penalty area, drop on a green. But whatever that area includes, wherever that reference point is, where the ball first hits, that's the part it has to stay in. Here's the putting green again. This is for a left-hander. We've got the nice isolated small puddle of temporary water. You get the ball out of it, you place it there, you continue. Here's where you've got water that's not a moat, but you can go left of it or right of it. Your nearest point to clear it for line of play, in this case, is going to be to the right. Your relief has to be either on the green, the putting green, or in the general area. You're going to place it there, even if it's the general area. And again, if there's no nearest point of complete relief, here's the moat again. Same thing, could be in the general area. If you do, you're going to place it there and then play. Okay, known or virtually certain. Here it comes. Right in. Abnormal course condition. What is this? This is an immovable obstruction. It's a building, okay? Within 3 minutes, we either have to make the determination it's known or virtually certain, or at that point, the ball's lost, if we haven't made that. So hopefully within 3 minutes, you've determined KVC, we know where it is, and it's in or on. It could be up on the roof of this thing, same principle, okay? This has to be on the course, because if this thing's located off the course, there's no relief for an abnormal course condition off the course, remember? Both the ball and the condition have to be on the course. So we've got KVC. We don't have to worry about stroke and distance. We may want to once you see where your relief is going to be, but you don't have to. This is free. Stroke and distance isn't. So depending what part of the course you're on, you take relief just like we saw. But what's our reference point? I don't know if you saw it, but that's where the ball crossed in, we estimate. So we're going to assume the ball lies right there next to the abnormal course condition. Now we find our nearest point of complete relief based on that point. Where do I have to move the ball to get clear of that interference? Once I do that and put it in play under KVC, like we said before, once you put a ball into play under KVC, doesn't matter where your original ball is anymore, okay? It's a wrong ball. So once that ball left her hand, that original ball was a wrong ball. Okay, well, Doesn't matter. Once I say KVC, doesn't matter. We're not looking for the other one anymore. So, only kicker here is you got to have that KVC because after 3 minutes, you're back where you last played from to get that succession of strokes resumed. No play zone. This is one of those places you don't get a choice on taking relief. You're going to. You got two cases. The ball's in it or the ball's out of it, but your stance or swing are going to be in it. Okay? Three places it could be under this rule. General area, bunker, or putting green. I don't think you're ever going to have to be in a no play zone in the teeing area. If you are, that's a tough hole to start with. Okay? It's in the general area, you take relief in general area. It's in the bunker, your free relief is in the bunker. Penalty relief would be that back on the line, out. Putting green, it's line of play. That's what we're dealing with there for the most part, or stance. Now, under this rule, you're probably going to find that your no play zone ground under repair. We're going to take relief under this rule. You have to have something you're taking relief with from. We'd never mark an animal hole as a no play zone because you get relief from it, right? We'd never mark temporary water as a no play zone because you get relief from it already. We're never going to mark an immovable obstruction as a no play zone because you get relief anyway. So what's left? Ground under repair. This is how you typically do it. Okay. Here we got a landscaped area. We don't want you in there chopping it up. Okay. We'll say to the players, all landscaped areas on the course shall be no play zones. Mandatory relief under Rule 16.1. Okay. So, where's the ball? And what are we going to do? Okay. Did we miss it already? Where's one? Oh, there it is. Anywhere, if the ball is in it, you're going to take relief to get the ball out. Okay. The other case is the ball's out of it and we have to get your stance and swing out. Come on. The other choice is only under the second part where the ball is already out. If you're going to get relief for your stance or your swing and you look where that's going to put your ball, you can declare the ball unplayable, okay, and take that relief for your ball where it is right then. Because you may be able to take 2 club lengths from where the ball is and get in a good spot, go back on the line and be okay, and not have to even take stroke and distance. But if you just have to get your stance and swing out of that no play zone, you might be. So that's one other option when the ball is not in it, but your stance and swing are. Penalty area, we'll see that later. If you don't get in the right place and take in this relief and play it, wrong place, 2 strokes. Any questions on that mess?
Ken, looking forward, when you get to 16.2b, we do have a question, so pause there, please.
Okay. Yeah, King.
See, take the idea that from man's forward to that wall, split with 2x4 pieces of sod. What is the meaning of all seams are the same seam?
question was relief from sod seams. What if you have multiple sod seams in an area? This is kind of the same as if we have aeration holes all over the place in one particular area. Essentially, what that's going to do is to avoid having to take relief from one to another, to another, to another, to another, you go right to the edge of it, the nearest edge, and go there. Okay? Because otherwise, you may never get out into a second one from the second, third one, because you're dropping it, you're not placing it. So you got the random nature in. They're all considered the same seam. Till you get away from them, you're not away. That's how I've always seen it done. Anything else? Nearest point of complete relief. Engrave that one. Okay, dangerous animal condition. Well, here we go again. Guess what? Insects came back. They're now animals again. They're dangerous animals, including other things. If that animal could cause serious physical injury to the player, you get the option of playing it from somewhere else, as opposed to waiting for it to move. Okay? No matter where your ball is on the course, could be in a penalty area, you're going to get to move it. Other things that could cause you harm, cactus bush, thorn bushes. Nope, not a dangerous animal. Could get hurt, but that doesn't count. Now you could put on your rain suit for those. Okay. Again, this is anywhere except a penalty area or a dangerous animal condition. You take the relief, just like we did from an abnormal course condition, depending where you were. General area, bunker, putting green. Okay. But you're going to stay in that area. Penalty area, you got two choices. And we're going to see it again in 17, but here's the gist of it. You get free relief. You can take the ball and move it to the nearest point in the penalty area, drop it away from the animal. Or you can directly take relief outside the penalty area, which you could have done anyway. Okay? Once you get that ball elsewhere, under any of these rules, if the animal comes back towards you or something, you can do it again. This is like the infinite relief rule, but you're always no near the hole. So I guess if he's chasing you back towards the tee at some point, you may want to wait and let him go away.
Making penalty area and would be able to focus on the ball. You have one eye looking reasonably clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, how reasonable does the fear have to be?
The question was, how reasonable does the fear have to be? I say it depends on two things. How big is he? Yeah. The answer is, if I'm the official, I'm not going to tell you you have to go up there and play the ball. Okay? I'm going to give you some amount of time to see if it moves or let you move the ball. Okay? We're not going to be real nasty about it. Again, well, that, like I said, that depends. How fast is the animal and how fast are you? Well, actually, how does that used to go? I don't have to be faster than the animal. I just have to be faster than my caddy. Okay. You can't take this relief, okay, if you couldn't have played the shot anyway. Remember we had it in a tree trunk and stuff like that? You could have a dangerous animal there, but if I didn't have a shot anyway, I can't use the animal as the excuse to why I need relief. Okay? All right. And again, here's the, what's the nearest point? That's a judgment call, but it's never near the hole. Okay? Any questions on dangerous animals? Oh,
Yes,
by the way,
you forgot me.
yeah, I know. That wasp nest, that's a dangerous animal under this rule. See, you couldn't you couldn't say that was an animal habitat, but now the wasp is a dangerous animal. So now you could get relief from it under that. Go ahead, Alvin.
So in 16.2b1, it states the player may take relief under Rule 16.1b, C, or D, depending on whether the ball is in the general area, in a bunker, or on the putting green. The question that has arisen is, what if the dangerous animal situation involves a teeing area? Players are obligated to tee off within the teeing area.
Well, if it's that bad, I think you're going to wait and call the committee or call the maintenance staff.
Right. I think the point you want to make is the player absent being told by someone on the committee.
I guess if you haven't started play of the hole, the teeing, does the teeing area activate when you put the ball in it or when you walk onto the teeing ground?
I didn't understand the question.
Is the teeing area active before you put a ball in, tee a ball or put a ball on the ground in the teeing area? If the answer is no, then the teeing area is part of the general area, and that's how you would take your relief. But mostly, I think you're going to wait till the animal leaves.
Yeah, the teeing area is, going to be defined. It's going to be different for you and me because I may be playing with a 48-inch driver and you're playing.
I think for that case, you're just going to wait till the animal moves. Nobody's going to tell you got to go.
Yeah, but if it's a situation where it isn't going away, my
Then you
point,
call,
my
then you
point,
call an official. Call an
yeah,
official, and we'll call the maintenance staff.
I agree. I agree with that answer.
Okay, embedded ball. This is relatively new rule. First, it only applies to the general area. And we need to know what we mean by embedded. And this has a corollary in Rule 13. So, when's the ball embedded? Resulting in previous stroke, your ball has come to rest in a pitch mark where any part of the ball is below the surface of the ground. Sounds similar to a ball resting against a flag stick? It's hold when any part of the ball is below the surface of here embedded is relative to the surface of the ground from the previous stroke. Doesn't have to touch the soil because you could have crushed grass down into the bottom of it. Okay? Again, general area only. Can't be a bunker. Can't be in a penalty area. The only part of Rule 16 that applied to a penalty area was a dangerous animal. All the other parts of it, abnormal course conditions, embedded ball, temporary water, all those things, can't use them in a penalty. Okay? So, how about the putting green? Oh my gosh, look at that mess. Well, what did your ball do to the green? Nope, that's the wrong word. Somebody said made a hole. Correct. Damage is the correct word. You're allowed to repair damage on the putting green. So what do? Mark your ball, lift it. Because it's damage to the green. You caused it, but so what? In damage, when Mike talked about that, that could be you scuffing your feet, jamming your club down, your ball. Well, it'd be a ball mark, but same thing. You're allowed to repair a ball mark. That's a hell of a ball mark. Okay. Okay. In the general area, a ball in loose sand in a part of the general area not cut to fairway height or less isn't embedded. So here we've got scrub sand, scrub brush, not in the fairway, but in the general area. Sorry, that ball's not embedded. May not like it, but it's not embedded. And again, here's that unreasonable. This is embedded in soft dirt under a tree trunk. Sorry, you had no shot anyway, so we're not going to let you get out of that. Okay, here we're repeating this again. Previous stroke, part of it below the surface of the ground. Okay. Now, as an official, you may get called over because somebody says, I think my ball's embedded. Comes down to, how do you tell? The last part of this rule will tell us. If you're not sure, it's in your pitch mark. Now here it's pretty obvious. It's the only pitch mark around. If there's a bunch of them around, how are you going to judge? Well, reasonable evidence. What would reasonable evidence be? That's one way. Dirt on your ball would be one, but how are you going to know that if you can't see it? Last part of the rule will tell us. Here's how I would tell. You mark and lift the ball, and you look at the dirt, the pushed up turf in there. If it's dry and firm, and all the other marks around it are soft and wet, that's not your pitch mark. Okay, that one's been there for a while because it dried out. Okay. Here's things that don't embed. Stepping on it, a tee shot or a shot that never leaves, never gets up in the air, and a ball dropped in relief. Those never embed, even if they do. Now, if you kick the ball and bury it, that's rule 9. We get to fix that. Okay. So what's our relief area? Well, we have to be in the general area, so our reference point immediately behind where the ball was embedded. It's our semicircle, one club, because it's free relief. It has to be in the general area, so that's where you're going to drop it. Okay. Here's one we see, because it always seems to cause trouble. We're probably going to skip a couple of slides here because the picture is better than the words. Here's one where the ball is in the general area above a bunker. It's not touching the sand in the bunker, but immediately below the ball is sand in the bunker. It's not general area. That's my reference point. So I can't use that as the reference point. So what do I do? That one, skip that one, skip that one, skip that one, here. This is what you do. Here we see the same picture for the ball. The point right behind it, can't use it. But if we look at the picture to the left, this shows a bunker, but pretend it's a penalty area. You can see the dotted line with the arrow. The back of the dotted line is where the ball is. From that point there, where's the nearest area known nearer the hole? I can't go to the right around the bunker because it's nearer. So I have to either go back a little bit to the left, down to the left, counterclockwise, or a little bit out from there. That will be my reference point. Then I generate a semicircle, and since two parts of the course, I can only use the part that's in the general area. So all those slides they had there, this is what it's telling you to do. You're going to move around the perimeter of that condition, no near the hole, till you find a spot in the general area where you can create that relief area.
Can you place the ball there?
Drop. The question is, can you place it? And the answer is no, we're dropping because it didn't own a spot. You're moving it to another location on the course. It's free relief, so you got to drop it.
You get try to drop in the same area.
Yeah.
And if you don't drop that the second try, you can play.
If it doesn't stay in that area, yes. It's the same rules for Rule 14. 2 drops to try to get it in the relief area. The third time, you place it at the spot where the second drop hit the relief area or touched the relief area. Okay. The committee can't impose a local rule. You can only use the general area cut to fairway height or less. So you can't use it in the thicker grass. Okay? If you don't get it in the right relief area, too near the hole or something, and you play it, you make a stroke at it, wrong place, 2 strokes. Okay? Any question on embedded ball? Say that picture's way better than those 3 slides of words. Okay. Here's what you do if you can't be sure. Okay. I think I may be in the condition, but I'm not sure. Okay. Same as if you're trying to identify a ball. Okay. This applies to rule 15 or 16. You can mark and lift the ball and check and see. So, on the odd chance you're not going to be allowed relief and it has to go back, you better mark it first. Okay. So you're going to mark it and lift it. Since you don't know what's going to happen yet, you can't clean it yet. Okay. If you lift it without reasonable concern or reasonable belief that it may be the condition, I think it's in temporary water. We're in the middle of the fairway. What temporary water are you talking about? I think it might be embedded. Same thing. I'm in a bunker. Sorry. No. It has to be reasonable that the condition you're looking at might actually be where the ball is. Okay. You do it just to lift it and reposition it to line it up? Nah. Had a player once doing that. He sure seemed to lift his ball a lot to identify it in the fairway in a tournament. One of the other players finally asked me about it. So I went and talked to him. He didn't do it again. So now putting green is different, of course. Why? Because you can mark and lift your ball on the putting green anytime. Okay. If we determine you do have relief, okay, you're in ground under repair, you're in temporary water, and you take it, no penalty no matter what you did to the ball. Why? Because if you're going to take relief, you can clean, you could have done all those things. You don't need to mark a ball if you're going to put it somewhere else. Okay. If you aren't allowed relief and you did all those dumb things, you're going to get the 1 penalty stroke because you did 2 things you shouldn't have with no intervening event. Okay. And then you got to put it back. Okay. This is even worse. You were allowed relief and you didn't take it. Okay. Why? Oh my God, you mean I'm going to be over there? Well, guess what? It's going to go back and you're going to get that same penalty stroke. You don't do that, you don't get in the right spot, wrong place. Okay, here we are with this thing again. Ball's inbounds. Got a metal chain link fence out of bounds, but it's a boundary object. Player takes relief under an abnormal course condition, calling it an immovable obstruction, and plays the ball. What's the ruling? No penalty, 1 stroke penalty, general penalty. Anybody like A? Anybody like B? That's a tough crowd. Everybody likes C? Nobody's saying anything. Well, what can't it be? He took relief from an immovable obstruction off the course. So there's no relief, right? So there's going to be a penalty in here for some, since he took the wrong place. So, you just have to parse the thing. Okay. We're out of here on this. Quick question.
You said if you step on the ball, that's not an embedded ball.
Correct.
But isn't it a penalty for, if you did it accidentally, you're getting a penalty for moving the ball? And don't you have to replace it to where it was?
Question was, if you step on a ball, it's not embedded. Is there a penalty? And what do you do? don't know when you do it deliberately. If you're really a nasty opponent, you can go, I didn't see it there. Sorry. In which case you would still proceed the same way. If it was deliberate, I think you're going to get a penalty as if you're an opponent or another player who did it, you're going to get a penalty for moving the other player's ball because you changed its position vertically. Okay?
It just isn't.
It's not an embedded ball. Yeah. Same as if one of us drives over it. Yeah. Okay. We're running short on time here. So if you need to take a break, go, but I'm going to get started on 17. I'll tell you the short language of relief is not mandatory out of 17. And it's put there because if you go in a penalty area, your ability to play the ball is probably not very high. This is a way to get the ball back on the court outside in sequence of strokes. Okay? 3 parts. What if your ball's in it? What are your options? What if you play the ball from within the penalty area? That's going to depend on where it goes. And the last part, we already touched on this. Nothing else can get you out of the penalty area. Okay? Rule 17 is the only thing that gets you out of the penalty area and back on another part of the course. Can't use 16, can't use a lot of things. Okay. What's the penalty area? How do we know if a ball's in it? What if you want to play it from within there? How do I get it out? It's going to cost you. What if there's a no play zone? And we already talked about this again. Okay. You just within there. What if or it goes somewhere else? Whether you either are required to play again from where you did, or you choose to because you have no other good choice. Okay. What if you have to come back? All right. Penalty areas, bodies of water, other areas defined by the committee, lost or probably won't find it. Penalty areas are new. They showed up in 2019. Before that, we had water hazards and lateral water hazards. That's why you'll see one in here as a penalty area by default. Okay. So for one stroke, if you choose, it'll get you back, get the ball out, where you can keep swinging at it. Probably. A and B play into a penalty area at about the same spot in shallow water. At the direction of A, as agreed by B, A's caddy retrieved both balls and the balls are exchanged by mistake. They take relief under the penalty area rule and play out the hole with the balls exchanged. What's the ruling? A and B get the penalty of 1 stroke under the penalty of the relief rule. No additional penalty for exchanging balls. Since A's caddy caused the incorrect substitution, A gets the general penalty of 2 strokes, B gets no penalty. A and B each gets the general penalty. Okay. 5 part. What's the penalty area? Special area of the course. It's our last defined area. Okay. Which means it probably has rules of its own that don't apply anywhere else. And there it is. It gets you back out. Remember I said this was all originally water? That's why all these things are penalty areas, whether they're marked or not. Okay. You find this on the course, it's a penalty area, unless the committee says no, but okay, any of those. Other parts, they finally decided there's some parts of the course we don't want players spending 5 minutes looking for, going back to the tee. It's usually dense brush, stuff like that. 8-foot high weeds. It's at the committee's discretion, but it's not by default. All those wet things are by default. Okay? So it's our last defined area that we're talking about. We've got a water area there and we've got a dense brush area, both penalty areas. Okay? 2 kinds, depending how they're marked, yellow or red. Yellow, yeah, yellow stakes and or lines. 2 relief options, red Same two relief options plus one more. If it's not marked by the committee, by default, it's red. Now, the only thing that can possibly apply to is water areas. There's no such thing as a grove of trees that by default would have been a red penalty area. This part of the rule only applies to water features, okay? That isn't temporary water. The edge of the penalty area, well, it's kind of like out of bounds. Goes up to heaven and down to hell. Okay? Anything on one side of it is in it. Anything on the other side is out of it. That's just what it's saying there. And it doesn't matter what it is. Okay? If something crosses the boundary, the part that's in is in, the part that's out is out. So in this case, we've highlighted it. Inside the penalty area, we've got part of a cart path, part of a bridge. Those are both immovable obstructions. Guess what? No relief, since they're in the penalty area when your ball's in there. Okay. But 3 inches away, that's an immovable obstruction. How do we define them? Same three things. Stakes, lines, features, same principle apply. If we use stakes, I'll call it the course side at ground level. The line we draw, that's the edge, goes up and down, okay? Where are the stakes? They're in the area, okay? I don't know if you can see it, but there's a ball about halfway up there to the right of the line. Keep an eye on that, okay? Now we're going to use lines. We still have over there. The line controls. Well, look where they drew the line. Remember that ball? Now it's out of the penalty area. Makes our job easier. Okay. Go features. Here's one of those things that they have to tell you the penalty area and then define the edge. Here we've got a wheat field on the right side of the hole. And we just decided, too many players hit the ball in there. We never find it and we waste time, blah, blah. So we're going to say the wheat field to the right side of hole number 7 is the red penalty area. The edge of the penalty area is the mow line outside the tall grass. So we've told you it's a penalty area, and we told you what the edge is. Okay, here's what we've said already. You can use multiple things. You can use lines and stakes, but the line always controls. We do have stakes. First of all, they're artificial. They're probably movable. They're movable obstructions when it comes to play. But put them back in the hole, or you've created a hole created by the maintenance staff, which is under Rule 16. Any missed marks? That's all that. Ideally, we would know this, and usually somebody took a stake out to mow, didn't put it back, which is why when we're officials, if you've got a zone of holes to look at, the water features to see stakes are where they should be, particularly yellow ones. Okay. So the players can't take advantage of it. They can't claim that's temporary and take advantage of it for relief. There was another reason they couldn't, but if we don't, where the edge is, it's where the ground starts sloping down to start funneling the water in. So here we've got a ditch and mineral object possibly, but certainly an obstruction. And then we've got two sides of it. The edge is going to be where it slopes down in. And we've actually seen this on a couple of courses over at Annbriar one year. They'd taken all the stakes down to mow a certain area, but we had a creek down there about 2 feet wide, a water drainage, but it went like this. So it's very determined where it was going to be if we needed to. Okay. Sometimes we have drainage ditches that are only wet a part of the year, like in the Southwest. But the committee, so when there is water in, they don't have to. Okay. The marks are there and nobody says anything, it's a penalty area. But the committee can, the drainage ditch to the left of hole 5 will be played as part of the general area. There. That way they don't have to worry about mowing up the lines and having to repaint them. Okay. Red or yellow again, affects your relief options. Here's this question again. It's all about the ball, not your feet. Where's the ball? The ball's up, very inside, and this, even after you take relief. There could be enough slope that the ball goes back close to that red line, but as long as it's outside, you're standing in the obviously the edge. Okay? So it either lies or touches the ground or anything inside the edge of the penalty area. Remember, it's plain. All it has to do is be partway across, which is different. Well, that's the same for ground under repair. If any part of the ball is across that line, it's in the GUR. Unlike out of bounds, where all of the ball has to be out of bounds to be out of bounds. For GUR and this, any part of it is all that counts. Okay? Remember that thing goes all the way up and all the way down? Doesn't actually have to be on the physical ground. Plant in there. Okay? That's Ernie Els, I think, at Oakmont in 1994. This one kind of goes without saying if you remember Rule 2. A ball can only be in part of the course at a time. And there's a hierarchy of how bad. Penalty area, bunker, green, general area. Any two that it straddles, you're always in the worst one, and penalty area is the top of the list. Okay? If a ball's in it, you're always free to play it. Relief it. Right. If you're going to play, it's the same as if it was in the general area, which means you do have some things you can do. Loose impediments and movable obstructions, you're free to move them. But anything under Rule 16, no. Just swing all that stuff. You're up the. If it's in there, you're going to take penalty relief. You may want to turn to page 240 if you got the big books. There's things to get the which yellow or red. You're going to see this picture 4 times before we finally tell you how to do it. Okay. The penalty area, we'll talk about that at the end. So, how do we know it's in a penalty area? Well, hopefully we see it go in. We don't have to physically find it, but most of the time it's because it's known or virtually certain. We see it roll in, we see it splash in. Okay. Once we've made that determination, the relief rules activate if we choose to use them rather than try to play it. Okay. Once we activate the relief rules and put a ball on play under it, forget the original ball regardless of where you find it. Anything it could do, if you take a drop and someone finds the area and it would change your reference point, we'll adjust the relief area to that point. And I think John covered that in Rule 14. But if you dropped it incorrectly with respect to a reference point, but you make a stroke, didn't matter. Same thing though, we're still not going to get the ball back. You can't decide to play it once you did KVC, but you can adjust your reference point. Okay, there's a 3-minute thing again. All right, hey, too bad. Again, known or virtually certain, here's our relief options. Okay. First one, stroke and distance. Second one, back on the line. Those are the two that apply to yellow. Those are the only two that apply to yellow. Why? Because yellow, you still have to traverse the hazard, the penalty area. Okay? Still have to carry it. If it's a red penalty area, you got those two options plus one more, the lateral one. Okay? Stroke and distance, you're playing from where you last played. Well, where'd you play from? Teeing area, we know what to do there. General area, bunker, or another penalty area. You create the relief area, you drop it, you stay in that area and you play it. Putting green, you place it. Why would you ever do that? Because you put it off the green into a creek. Tiger Woods did Augusta one year. Okay, back on the line, we got a video.
The rules of golf are changing in 2023. The back on the line relief procedure has been simplified, and here's what it looks like. So to use a penalty area as an example, I'm going to keep the point where the ball last crossed between the hole and where I want to drop it. I can go back as far as I want on the line, but I have to drop it on the line because that's what activates this relief option. If I don't drop it on the line, I'll be dropping in a wrong way. The relief area won't get created, and I'll have to correct my mistake by dropping it again, but in the right way on the line. But once dropped on the line, the ball can roll up to 1 club length in any direction, even if it rolls forward and closer to the hole. Back on the line is a great relief option for penalty areas, but you can also use it when you decide that your ball is unplayable.
Okay, back on the line and taking your drop. I don't know why everybody doesn't do this, but I only see it once in a while. I don't know why you want to try to stand to the side of the line and drop the ball on it when you can stand astride the line with 1 foot on each side, reach out in front of you and drop it right on the line. That would out whether or not you dropped it on the line and then stand across the line, drop it between your legs. And you're, an official tells you you missed it, he's wrong. Okay, and this is just a picture of what the guy just told us to do. Okay, now the thing is, since you're going back on the line, you can drop it in any other area of the course you'd like. Again, general area, bunker, another penalty area, a green, wrong green even, in which case you'll have to take relief, but that's how far you can go. Okay, this is that circle. Just has to bounce on the line and then stay inside. It can even get closer to the hole, but there you go. All right, lateral option. Here's the relief area. And again, you identify where you last crossed the edge. You can see it here. The arrow points. There's where I think it crossed the edge of the penalty area, okay? So you get 2 club lengths, no near the hole, and you swing the arc back to the edge of the penalty area again, okay? You drop it anywhere in there. And again, if you did this with KBC, once that ball leaves his hands, it's in play. But it's 2 club lengths. Why? Penalty. Free relief 1, penalty relief 2. Again, no near the hole. Any area of the course except the same penalty area. Okay? But if there's multiple areas in there, the first area that your ball hits is the one it has to stay in. Rule 25, players with disabilities, a lot of special rules. This used to be part of a lateral water hazard rule. It's an optional rule, a local rule. If it's not invoked, you can't use it. The gist of it is, if the ball last crosses the penalty area, for instance here, on the left side and kicks down into the creek, you'd be allowed to strike an arc to the near side, the fairway side, no near the hole, and create your relief area there. But that has to be a local rule that's noted. Again, this used to be one of the relief options for a lateral water hazard. That's the only reason I think it's still in the local rules. But they'll show you what you do here. Bounced in on the left side. We create another relief area no near the hole on the right side, and we play from there. Okay. No play zones. Either the ball's in it or you are. Okay. If the ball's in the no play zone, the only way you're getting out is one of the three relief options we showed, depending on what area you're, what, red or yellow. That's it. You're taking the ball out right away. You're not taking it out of the no play zone into another part of the penalty zone. You're coming right out. So don't even think about it. Okay. Okay. I don't know that I've ever seen this, but what they're describing here is you're still in the no play zone, but you're out of the penalty zone. Or out of, yeah, out of the pen. What would you do? Different condition because it's in a different part of the course. Okay. Now, the ball's in the penalty area, but not in the no play zone. So you're either standing in, would be standing in, or swinging in it or through it. Okay. Well, we're not going to let you do that either. But you can either directly go outside the penalty area with your ball, or you can take free relief in the penalty area and then decide whether to play it or take your original penalty relief. Because you haven't changed where you cross the edge. That's the same spot. Okay? That's all this is telling you. So immediately go out or find a spot in the penalty area, no near the hole, where you can drop the ball. And then decide if you want to play it or not. And what's that spot going to be? It's going to be one of those semi. Okay. And again, if you're in there, and I guess you could, this would be the case, you've got a tall bush or something that your ball's under in the penalty zone, penalty area, forget trying to get relief under this. We're going to make you take a penalty stroke. Okay. Okay. Already covered that one. So how can you screw up here? Well, you take relief under one of these rules, drop it outside the zone, don't get the zone correctly, and you make a stroke at it. Any questions on the easy part? Well, it is. We see this all the time. It's one of our most common things. Okay. Now you decide you're going to play the ball. Nicholson type thing. Okay. From within the penalty area. What happens now? If you turn to page 240, that shows the case where you decide to play it from within the penalty area and it never crosses the edge of the penalty area. Now, the first thing you can do is you can try to play it from there. If you decide not to, here's your choices. Okay. You played originally from spot 4 to spot A. Okay. You decided, I'm going to try it. Now you play it to spot B. Now you decide, oh God, that wasn't the smartest thing I could have done. Well, you can keep trying from there. In fact, you can try as many times as you want and not get it out. At some point, you're going to decide, I've had enough. When you do, your options are, you can take stroke and distance back to where you made your last shot from. That might have been still in the penalty area, okay? So maybe you only go back 3 feet. Your next choice is take back on the line from where you crossed the edge, last crossed the edge. So if I never got out, I'm way back here with my reference point. I can come back there and use back on the line. Assuming it's a red penalty area, I can use that to take lateral relief. Okay? And again, no matter how many times I chopped it from A to B, C, D, as long as I never got out. Or, this is the last one, I can go back to where I last played from outside the penalty area. Because that may be better than back on the line or lateral. Okay? So, no matter how much you screw it up in there, for one penalty stroke, you can come back and use this reference point again. Let's call it the eraser regression, but that's it. Okay? Okay. Now, you decide to come back here, and I'm going to try it again from point A. Okay? You drop it, and you go, that wasn't the smartest thing I could. I took my stroke and distance. Now what do I do? You can still use all those other options, but the stroke and distance penalty of one stroke. So now, instead of getting the ball out with one stroke, it costs you two. You can never get rid of the stroke and distance penalty, which is all it says here. You can still do all those other things. Here we go again. So I got it back to A. I said, oh gosh, I don't want to again. I'm not going to play it from there. Now you still have all those other choices for one more stroke. Okay? It's going to cost you the one more. And that just says, if all else fails, the last place you made a shot from outside it. We're going to give you a way to resume the sequence of strokes. We're not going to make you keep chopping it in the water. Okay, I'm going to stop it here. But if you go to page 241, you'll see what happens if you decide to play it from within inside a penalty area. You actually get it out. And it either goes into another penalty area or crosses back into the same penalty area you're in. Okay? If it crosses into another penalty area, you start again over there. If you come back into the one you're in, now you've got a new reference point and you start again there. Okay? So if I never cross the red line getting out, that's what we talked about. If you crossed it out and back in, you start again there. Okay. You decide to play it from inside the penalty area and the ball goes someplace where you're not in good shape. One of three things: out of bounds, lost on the course, or unplayable, and my only option is stroke and distance. What are you going to do? So this is Pebble Beach, 18th hole. This is the player's, just so you know, it's his third shot. He hit a drive. His second shot ended up here, down on the beach. The tide was out, so he's going to take a chance. Oops. So what can he do? Yeah, that's basically it. That's his only way to get the ball back when you out of bounds, stroke and distance. So the question is, how do you do it? He's got to take that stroke. The question is, how do you do it? Okay? This is all it's saying. So why would you do it? Well, I airmailed it. I hit it into some tall trees and couldn't find it in 3 minutes. Or I hit it in a place so dense I got over there, I couldn't take unplayable relief laterally. I couldn't go back on the line. Only way is to come back where I was. So either way, I'm back in there. Okay? We already saw this once, where you went back in, you dropped it and said, I'm not doing this. You could still use the other options. It's the same thing, except one nice thing. I don't actually have to drop it in the penalty area before I go out. I can go right to the reference point, but I'm still going to get the stroke and distance penalty because I had to get back here. So here's how it works. And that's what that's telling you. So this is from the start again. This is where we picked it up. It's his third shot coming. I'll be damned if he didn't hit it OB again. He's back there and he says, well, I got to pay the stroke and distance penalty, but now I'm going to exercise one of the other options from my reference point. It looks like he's doing back on the line. He does. So 1, 2, 3 out of bounds, 4 stroke and distance, 5 to get out of the penalty area, 6. I'll tell you right now, there are questions on the test where you have things like this. Don't ever forget the penalty stroke you can't get rid of, like to get it out of the red or to get it back in play, stroke and distance. It usually says total penalty strokes are, and usually it's like 1, 2, 3. It's 3 because it's got whatever you really did wrong plus the 1 you did to get out of it. Okay? Okay. That's what you do for those. Any questions? Good. Penalty area. When your ball's in the penalty area, you can't use Rule 16. All the bad things in Rule 16, abnormal course conditions, embedded ball, forget it. Dangerous animal, yeah. You can move it around in there and within the penalty zone, but that's it, penalty area. But none of these other things, you can't declare a ball unplayable in there either, which is your other relief option if you want to think of it, to get a ball back in play. So the only way to get it out is Rule 17. Dangerous animal condition, you find the nearest point of complete relief in the penalty area, take your drop, and then you decide, play it or take relief, but then you go back to where did I cross the edge? You don't adjust the reference point based on where you took relief. Okay? So here we are back with this, which means we must be near the end. That's not bad, only 6 minutes over. No, I left stuff out too because I had a really good one I didn't use. Okay, 2 balls in a penalty area. Caddy picks the balls out, they get exchanged, they play them and go, hey, guess what? I got your ball, you got mine. So they each get a penalty of 1 stroke under the penalty rule, no additional penalty for exchanging balls. A's caddy causes the incorrect substitution. A gets the penalty, general penalty, B walks home. A and B each get the general penalty for incorrect substitution. So what's important here? First, they're in a penalty area. You're taking relief. What can you do when you take relief?
New ball player.
Yep. You can substitute a ball. Doesn't matter. Once it's been picked up, it's not a ball in play. It's a stray ball or wrong, it's not anything. It's a ball not in play. So the substitution was okay. So the answer should be then, guess what? They're going to get the 1 penalty stroke. See, we got a lot in there, but you can't forget the 1 they're going to get. Yeah, you never get rid of the 1 that you would have had anyway, even though we had a lot of other stuff going on. Okay? We're done.
I have one comment. I just want to let Ken know that he has gone international. I had a text from John Thurman, who's in New Zealand, who has been listening to you.
Sorry, John. Okay, I have a quick trivia question. You don't have to think of the answer now, but I would have used this last week if I was doing that presentation. Andy North, who won the 85 US Open, is known for one thing. He won 2 US Opens, 2 majors, and no other major. Okay? multiple players have won more than one major, but it's always the same one. Who are they? And how many times did they do? Players who have won more than one major, but it's always the same one. Here's another freebie, Hale Irwin, 3 US Opens, okay? And I'll limit it to players whose last major was 1950 or later. No, I said no, 1950 or later for when they won their last multiple major. Yeah, at least 2. Always the same one. It's interesting to think, because remember, we got 4 majors. Yeah. But there's a bunch of them. You don't get anything else. If you get it right, or I don't know, however many you can think of, I'll buy you a soda sometime. It's the kind of thing that came to me in the middle of the night when I couldn't sleep one night. I was trying to decide, I was going through something. Well, who won? Wait a minute. Well, that's right. That's all he did. And that's all he did. That's all he did. I came up with like 7 right off the bat, all in the modern era, like after 1980. Don't give them away. You're giving away freebies. Okay. Oh, here's one. I'll give you the other one. That's hard to do.